County Board of Supervisors meeting, recorded May 2nd, 2023.
It's 5 o'clock. We'll call the Portage County Board to order. Roll call.
We have 22 supervisors present. Supervisor Olson and Supervisor Pataki are remote.
Pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register their requests at this time with such comments subject to reasonable control of the county board chair as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. We are spreading a sheet around. I think there's still one circulating. If anybody has not signed to speak, I want to remind everybody to direct the comments to the chair. I also want to remind everybody to use decorum tonight. If somebody is getting belligerent or loud, I will stop them and have the deputies escort them out. I also want to remind everybody about tonight's agenda. The items that are on the agenda are money only. There's nothing about the green spaces or downtown. That was determined on April 18th. I will give a little bit of a latitude, but if you keep bringing it up, I will pause you and remind you that it is only about the money. So, with that, we'll go into public.
Thomas Flugar.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Thomas Flugar. I am a reserve judge still. I was a circuit court judge in this courtroom for 26 and a half years, and I have a long history in terms of the courthouse project that we're talking about here. Myself, Judge Finn, and Judge Fleischauer attended dozens, if not over 100 or 200 meetings, as many meetings as Jeannie Dodge, Don Jankowski, Dave Medine. Those are the ones that know the history as well as myself. And then it continued after those two retired, and I continued on coming to meetings upon meetings, space and property, having, getting all the way to having a project ready to go. 2008, we had a project ready to go, and it was going to cost between $60 and $70 million. And the county board did not have the courage to vote on it themselves, and so it had to go to a referendum, and it got killed by a landslide. 2 years later, the county board decided, well, maybe we should just build a courthouse. And I can't remember the price tag on that. It was less. And of course, county board wouldn't vote on it, and it got killed in a landslide once again by referendum. So then it was kind of dead in the water. Everybody keeps, it would resurrect every so often. So when Holman was elected, the county executive, and he wanted to revisit it. So that was, 4 or 5 years ago. And by that time, it was up to $110 million. And so now I'm hearing it's $180 million, which I can't even fathom that figure anymore. If it had been built, obviously, in 2008, that was the Great Recession, by the way, and contractors were very hungry, and projects were being built at about 2/3 the cost. That dorm on the north side of UWSP was supposed to cost $27 million, and it was reported publicly, I believe, that it cost like $18 million because the contractors were so hungry for work. And so you may want to consider waiting for the next recession, and you might get a better price on this. But the point of all this is that I've been asked by the three judges that are here today, what would you do if you were still there? If you were still here. And, and I know the needs of the jail. I know the needs of the courthouse. I know the needs of having the jail and the courthouse next to each other, the security concerns and separation of parties, and meaning the jurors and the litigants and all that. So I know what the issues are. But I will tell you, when they ask me, what would you do? I'm telling you honestly, I would say, forget this $180 million project. Just keep things the way they are and wait for another board, wait for another 4 years, and maybe come up with a better idea. That is my position. And there's another thing that I do want to tell you is that at the end of my term, before I retired, the last 6 months we were in the pandemic. And during the pandemic, of course, things were shut down for a large part, not the courts, but a lot of good things came out of the pandemic in terms of becoming more efficient. Zoom appearances by litigants, lawyers, things became more efficient in that regard, and it continues to this day. The other thing is that our jail,
Judge, I want to remind you that you have 3 minutes and you're way past that.
Okay.
Can you please wrap it up?
I'll end this very quickly then. We had to determine who really needed to be in that jail. Granted, we had 35 over in Wapaka County. Guess how many people were in our jail when we determined who really needed to be there during the pandemic? Between 10 and 15 people.
Michael O'Mara.
And I want to remind everybody to please watch the clock up on the top of the screen, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Michael O'Mara, 1809 Clark Street, Stevens Point, Wisconsin. You're asked to approve a bond issue of $180 million. That will be the largest public work that's ever been in Portage County. It's more than the interstate cost. As you look at it, I hope you would look at the whole cost. The $180 million is just for building the facility. But if you consider the cost to citizens who will now all be taking longer to get there, some of them will be have to use the bus, so you can add another hour and a half that they can't work. And what are you going to do with the old site? The demolition of that jail is not going to be easy. You'll be dynamiting it to try to get it out because it's so reinforced. And then you want to clean it up. Then you're going to, if you go outside, you're going to, the sprawl is more expensive. And the additional costs will be for city infrastructure. Sewer, water, drainage, additional roads, and the maintenance of those roads. You want to have sidewalk and bike access because you're going to be under the requirement for environmental justice. And you're going to have a new transit route that you're going to pay for every single year. You're going to be losing productive farmland. And I think that this sort of deal merits what's called a value engineering analysis, where you have a multidisciplinary team of people who were not involved in the design, who go and take a new look at it with fresh eyes and see what can be done to get this $180 million into control. And I don't think that that has been done. And it's large enough that you certainly can afford a 3 or 4 day value engineering retreat to find out really what people who do this and aren't invested in what they've already done. Thank you.
Tori Jennings.
Thank you, Chair and Supervisors. The idea of an honest broker in politics rests on the notion that one seeks to enable freedom of choice by decision makers. The honest broker engages in decision making by clarifying and at times seeking to expand the scope of choice available to decision makers. Thus, a characteristic fundamental to an honest broker is explicit engagement with decision alternatives. By contrast, stealth issue advocacy is focused on reducing the scope of choice available to decision makers. Stealth issue advocacy is a strategy that uses the tools of governance to compel a particular decision. Last month, we listened to Supervisor Morrow state that we should all trust the committees who do the research and work of bringing good policy forward. Not mentioned is the fact that Chair Haga appoints members to the most powerful committees who will advance the resolutions he wants. This is how power works in government at the city, county, state, and federal level. While I might agree with Supervisor Morrow in theory, it's not how the county board operates under this leadership. Supervisor Haga, the county executive, and many on this board have not been honest brokers. There was never any intention of seriously considering the downtown site. You have wasted taxpayer money and the time of city and county staff, the judges and DA, county supervisors, city alders, and members of the public. This will be demonstrated by the next moves Chair Haga takes. It will not be the supervisors who vote no today who are stalling the building of a new jail and courthouse and increasing the cost to taxpayers. It will be you, Mr. Haga, and those who follow you. I had more to say, but because you cleverly arranged the resolution language so no one could speak about the location, I omitted those things. But thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
That's it.
Michael Bronk.
Thank you all. I'm Michael Bronk, Chairman of the Town of Stockton. I've been on the Stockton Board since 2005 and Chairman since 2007. Members of the County Board, I would like to, I'm sure that you would all agree, that it's a thankless job. And so with that, I would like to say thank you. So now it's no longer a thankless job. I know that there's a lot of people, there are a lot of people that I know that have ideas on both sides of this issue without being specific when it comes to the location. But some of the things that I talk about to people that live outside the city, not only in the towns, but even in the areas close to the, besides in the city, in the village of Plover or whatever else, is that they have some concerns as well as far as placement goes. And once again, we won't be speaking about placement, but our concerns, we at the Town of Stockton Board went on record in favor of a location outside of the current location, primarily for a couple of reasons. One of them is response times for the Sheriff's Department. I think that it's crucial for us to have good response times in the same way that the city has good response times for their law enforcement in the city. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is there's only one place for, being simplistic, for the city of Stevens Point to expand, and that is east. And in some ways in the town of Stockton, we don't like to see that because it changes the landscape of our town. But keep in mind that in 50 years or whenever the next time there's going to be a county board discussing the next justice center, anything closer or further to the outskirts will be more centrally located than it is now. Thank you all.
Bob Larson.
Bob Larson, 3283 Lindbergh Avenue. If this resolution passes tonight, the next step would be a binding referendum, not an advisory referendum, I would hope. 3 questions the county board should be asking. What is the cost per year to ship prisoners to a Paca jail? Example, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year? What will it cost the county per year in interest to borrow $180 million? Example, if you can get a bond rate at 3%, you're talking $5.4 million a year in interest. What will impact the Portage County property owners on a $100,000 valuation? The last question should be, why doesn't Stevens Point want the county to build at the new proposed site? I believe services and employees. The site is convenient for Stevens Point residents and employees might shop downtown. What actually needs to be part of the proposed Justice Center? Circuit Court branches 1, 2, and 3, Clerk of Courts, Justice Programs, Sheriff's Office, and Jail. All other departments could remain at their current location. Example, ADRC Building, Portage County Annex, Veterans Services, County Clerk, etc. If this happens, there'd be almost no change to the current situation. The plus side would be the Stevens Point Police Department could move downtown again, take over the sheriff's building and jail. The police department is looking for a garage to service their cars. Behind the jail is a parking and service garage. The old Mid-State building, its current police building, could be sold to the Boys and Girls Club. They do a lot of goodwill for the county and city. They are growing and they need more room. This could accommodate their growth. If the Circuit Court, Clerk of Courts, Justice Program, Sheriff's Department, and Jail only relocate, it might change the size of the Justice Center, which could reduce building costs by millions. Bear with me. The courthouse, Portage County Annex, ADRC, Lincoln Center, and jail facilities are in good shape. It would be a sin to tear them down. If the county board decides to build a new Justice Center, it should be built on the greenfield proposed site. It saves money and allows for future expansion. And the last thing, Inflation Reduction Act, passed recently by the federal government, has billions of dollars allocated for green energy. There might be money available from the federal government to also help reduce the cost of the new building Justice Center. Thank you.
Mildred Neville.
Mildred Neville, 1709 Jefferson Street. I do not believe the county met with the city for a wholehearted, full look at what plan is best for the county as a whole. The city is an integral part of the county. I recommend you vote no on this funding resolution tonight. It isn't too late for the county and city to work together and come up with a better plan than has been presented so far. And it might even cost less. And I expect it would serve its intended purpose better. Thank you.
Michael LeClaire.
Michael LeClaire, 520 Elm Court in Plover. It's clear that it's difficult to be a member of a board like this because you can't possibly know everything. This has always been the case for people in this position. You have to rely on experts. You have to trust other people who know things that you don't know. Heck, that goes all the way back to Henry VIII. He was one of the most famous people who had a big court around him of experts because he had to have them help him. But unlike previous kings, Henry VIII said, "And teach me." He wanted to learn everything instead of just saying, "Hey, Mr. Horse Expert, you help me make the decision about this question." He said, "Okay, help me make the decision and teach me about horses." I think that it's clear that going into this, the board has simply not had enough information from experts. There's far too many things that are still out there that haven't been considered. As someone who knows well the creative thinking process, in order to come up with the best decision, you can't just take the first thing that you're told. You have to really do some brainstorming with a variety of people and look at a variety of possibilities. Listening to the people who have spoken already, it's clear that there are lots of possibilities out there that have not yet been considered. The amount of money is important, but the impact of moving it out there is also just as important. And while we're not talking about, shall we move it out there, we are, because moving it out there is why it's going to cost so much. And the fact that a whole bunch of costs, as Michael Muir and others have mentioned, have not even been included in that near $200 million price, tells me that, hey, you know how that works. If you don't have everything involved, you might end up paying twice as much before you're done with a project. There are far too many ramifications and repercussions that can come from this decision, both monetarily with spending this amount, and on obviously all the people that are involved in the process. At this point, the thing that I think of is, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I think that you haven't had all the information, and I think you've been misled by some of the information you've been given. Don't let it be you that the shame is on. Vote no on this.
McHaley Theo.
Good evening. Hi. I might be the youngest person to speak today, and I live in this neighborhood, and I urge you to vote no. And it's unfortunate that I have to talk about the money and not the location. But I live in this neighborhood, and having the courthouse is very convenient. Having the jail, having an even larger jail and more resources in this neighborhood would be excellent. It's a really nice place, and now I'm talking about the space. So $180 million is a lot. I can't even imagine how much, and I think that, as stated before by community members, it will cost more if it's outside, because we already have the resources here. It's going to be easier to do it here and cheaper. And so that's me talking about the money. Please vote no.
Elizabeth Schrader.
Hi, Elizabeth Schrader, 633 Portage Street. Thanks for taking my comment. I'm also going to ask you to vote no today. I've felt the process has been very not open, and it hasn't included all of the necessary information or the concerns of very concerned citizens who've attended lots of these meetings. I think it seems that the importance of having a safe justice center is huge. So there is pressure to not stall this process, and it needs to be worked on fast. But if you remove, and I know I'm not supposed to talk about location, but that's what's currently up, being proposed, or not in the today's, but in the last one. If you remove a center from all of its auxiliary supports, you can't guarantee it's going to be as effective as it has been. And what we got to hear about in March is how low our recidivism rate is and how wonderful the programs are. And so I'd ask that you vote no, and it would be a conservative vote, because you'd be potentially being able to conserve all the buildings and the quality of the programs if you can come up with a solution that keeps it downtown and addresses the actual concerns at hand. Thank you.
Robert Steinke.
Robert Steinke, 5753 Shady Drive, Town of Plover. Just a little bit of leeway I'm asking on behalf of the chair to make my point. Before I came here today, I took time to walk my mother around the property. My mother is suffering through the process of dementia. Every day it's getting to be worse. It's a process that is debilitating, and it's, to be honest, it's slowly killing her. Also, tomorrow morning, I get the joy of going to visit my grandaunt in a memory unit who is also suffering from the slowly debilitating process of dementia. And why I bring this up is at about the same time Mr. Chairman, that the current executive of our county was elected, there was a referendum that was brought up to the county in regards of increasing the levy in the county to look at addressing the needs of the Portage County Healthcare Facility and expanding and dealing with the needs of that. And that was addressed by the people here, and it was voted on, overwhelmingly supported in the county. And this board has done nothing. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, Mr. Chairman. This board has done squat. There's people dying in the county right now. And you want to talk about 180 million for a vanity project. The people have told you what they want done, and you are fast tracking a vanity project. It is absolutely disgusting.
Guy Jansen.
Good evening. My name is Guy Jansen, 1708 Church Street. Third time speaking. I appreciate you guys letting me speak. I'm a former business owner downtown here, about 25 years with a couple businesses, some rental properties. So this city, downtown, means a lot to me. $180 million is a ridiculous amount of money to spend on anything without having all the facts and figures. I don't quite understand how this county board and the city council, or whoever's in charge of getting involved with the city and the county together, hasn't come up with more information for the community, more figures and ongoing costs, what the actual costs are going to be to maintain this new facility, maintain the old facilities. I may be missing it. I'm not a big news junkie or anything, so I may be missing information that's out there that I'm not aware of, and I apologize for that. But $180 million is ridiculous to spend on something you don't have all the facts, you don't have community awareness about it or anything. You're just kind of flying because it's a new toy, or I'm not sure what the theory is behind this new county building. If you can save money and keep it in a different location, I think that's, an option. But again, I'm out of the loop, so you guys got to figure that out. I just hope that you consider the cost, and as other people that have been against this vote tonight have explained much more elaborately than I can, that there's a possible better solution to what you're voting on tonight. So I appreciate if you vote no, and you'll probably sleep better. Thank you.
Eric Olson.
I get clarification from the chair. Where are we on the agenda exactly? Because I thought we were doing comments on different items.
I see you're listed for all three of them.
Yeah, I wanted to speak on the highway project and I wanted to speak on the wetlands. So when do you want me to do that?
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Sounds fair. All right, I want you to vote yes on the highway project. The highway project is a routine project. You're being asked to borrow $6 million. This happens every once in a while. We borrow money to build highways. If this was a City of Stevens Point project, you'd have to put that to referendum, but you're in the county, you don't have to put that to referendum. It's kind of understood that we need to replace these highway projects, so you have to have 3/4 of the board to pass the highway project. You're also presented with a $1.5 million wetland bank. This is a thing that's probably going to benefit the county. The financial analysis is there. This wetland bank actually has a revenue source to back it up. The county highway department has to pay to replace wetlands that they're going to destroy for highway projects anyway. If you were to put that question to referendum, it would be kind of silly. You'd have to explain to everybody why we're doing a wetland bank, plus we have the money to back it up anyway. And it would probably get support. People would say, yeah, let's go restore some wetlands somewhere here in the watersheds. It's going to be good for everybody. So I urge you to support that. It requires still 75% of your vote. Then you have a third item, $180 million. This is not a wetland project. This is not $1.5 million for a wetland project. This is not a routine highway borrowing. You're all creatures of the state. The state of Wisconsin creates statutory guidelines for how you can borrow money. If this was a school district, you couldn't borrow any of this money without a referendum. If this was a highway project in the city, you'd have to do a referendum. The state of Wisconsin says, well, if a county doesn't want to go to referendum, if it chooses not to engage the public, if the county says, the public, we don't trust them, we don't think they know what's going on, plus we'd have to educate them and explain to them all the needs. We'd have to have a campaign, sort of like the campaign that we did for the healthcare center, which, if we did a campaign like that, we might actually find that the people do want to support building the courthouse and jail. And you know what it takes? 50.001% of the people to vote in favor of it, and then we could move forward. Then we could get this done. But we're not going to go to referendum, are we? No, we're going to try and squeeze 75% of the vote of this board on an item that really the statutes say you ought to put this to the public and let them vote. So what's going to happen next? I suspect this is going to get a no vote again here today. You're not going to hit the 75%. And then I'll predict what's going to happen next. The chair is going to point out that we're going to revisit this after the April election. And what's going to happen, again, not in the public eye, is that some of the people sitting here today are going to be targeted to be removed from the board with the goal of getting the 75%. We can't engage the public. We can't have a referendum. We don't want people to understand what's being done. We just need the 75%. And then we can borrow the $180 million, and we can build this big thing out on a cornfield east of town and go to town. I'm going to be working as a volunteer in my own time to make sure that doesn't happen. So thank you for your time today. I urge you to vote yes on the wetland, yes on the highway projects, and please vote no on the resolution to borrow $180 million for the project.
Keith Biasek? Bizak, thank you.
Story of my life. Hi, my name's Keith Bizak. I'm at 301 4th Avenue. I'm also representing my family, my wife Lenora, our two kids, Saoirse and Diz. We all run a business downtown, and so I'm speaking also on behalf of downtown. With regards to borrowing $180 million, I would say, yeah, let's go for $180 million. I mean, what number is too high? It doesn't really matter. It's about what we are wanting to invest in. So yeah, if we want to invest in our community, in protecting our judges, our attorneys, our lawyers, the defendants, and all the people that utilize the Justice Center facilities, and then the programs that help to, like recidivism and criminal justice reform, if we want to put thought into programs like that, and it ends up costing $180 million and we need to borrow it, it really seems worth it. It really seems like we should be willing to commit as much as possible to these types of programs, these facilities, and these people. Why not make it $200 million, $300 million? If we can imagine it being $180 million, what's 10 more million? It's about the vision, the dream, and the commitment to these issues. So if you feel as a board that based on the information that was presented to you, that you know what to do with $180 million and it's being utilized as widely as it can and as thoroughly, then wow, that would really be a great thing to vote on. But I think you all have sat here for all these meetings and listened to the bogus presentations we've seen from Tegra. I don't know what their name means, Tegra. They're completely lacking in integrity. We've seen very biased presentations, biased designs, biased figures. Our county executive presenting us with a bunch of play money and some simple arithmetic to get us to believe that this is a crisis moment. I am willing to accept that this is a crisis moment and that something needs to happen. But based on what we know, I would definitely vote no on $180 million now. I would not know what to do with it, and I don't think you all do either. So I'm saying to you, you can support $180 million by voting no today. A vote no today means you support our justices and our Justice Center and the surrounding communities. A vote no today means that you support our downtown, you support our county, and all who have to utilize the Justice Center's facilities, its people, its court systems. A vote no today means you care about the future of this community. Thank you.
Liz McDonald.
Excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you to the county board members who voted against the siting of the Justice Center and the yet to be identified and yet to be purchased green space. I ask you to stay the course, excuse me, and vote against the funding of this mistake. At the last county board meeting, one of your members said she wanted to rely on the experts. Who is more of an expert than the people who use the justice system on a daily basis? The past and current judges, local attorneys, and the DA's office all have stated that yes, we do need a new facility, but their preference has been for the current location, as has the great majority of the public who have stated so at one of the many meetings. Two of our local experts in urban issues have provided ample resource material, which also points to a central city location as a way to go. Additionally, a voice that has been missing is that of offenders who have to make multiple court appearances and for whom transportation is often a problem. A remote site to for the Justice Center would be a prohibitive cost for those people. We don't really have the public infrastructure, the public transportation that would make it easy for them to get to an outlying site. I understand the frustration. It probably feels to many of you that we have been dealing with this issue forever. There are many of us who feel the same. We thought that this was settled in 2018, at which time it appeared that the downtown site was a go. We are all frustrated. It appears that this has become a priority without sufficient general public and city participation. It's never too late to do the right thing. Voting no on this, on number 4, that $180 million, will provide an opportunity to have an open discussion with city leaders and to provide the public with more precise data on the financial and the social costs of this facility, and move ahead with the right plan and the right location. Thank you.
Jeannie Taukman.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Taukman. I misunderstood. I was going to speak tonight about the location, which I don't like, but I won't speak about it. I urge you to please vote no. It's very expensive, and it seems like we just don't have all the education that we might need to make a good decision. And based on what everyone else has said, I agree with the judge and all these other folks that it's just maybe revisit it a little bit. So thank you.
Mike Pagel.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Pagel, Chair of the Town of Lanark, that gorgeous piece of property out on the eastern edge of Portage County. Been on the board there since 1997. I remember Portage County discussing this issue a long time ago. In fact, I think when it started, I had hair. The reason I'm here tonight is because I'm representing my constituents. I know them well because we collect taxes in our town hall every year. I talk with those folks when they come in to pay their bills. I'm there as their target when they're upset. And if you haven't done this, by the way, I strongly recommend it as a means to be in touch with your constituents. There's no substitute for that, really. I'm not going to tell you how to vote tonight. That's not why I came here. But the numbers that are being thrown around right now are incredibly abstract. $180 million, $295 million. My town's annual budget, including the levy and state support, is $500,000. I had originally heard that the price difference between the downtown and the remote location was $10 million. That's 20 times my annual town budget. And most of the residents in my township were hit with a school referendum that went awry, that increased the levy for their property tax for the school by 52%. These people are not rolling in money. They're not anxious to see the state, or excuse me, the county rolling out blank checks for enormous projects. They're looking for accountability. They want the best possible decisions. They have this unrealistic expectation that people will collaborate.
Mark Christensen.
Good evening. I'm Mark Christensen. I'm the District 1 Alder in Stevens Point and was recently elected City Council President. You probably recognize me. I've been at a number of your meetings. This is the first time I've spoken. I always think it's important when you're making important decisions to get as much information as you can and to use that wisely. As a public official, one of your greatest responsibilities is being a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars. For 14 years prior to retirement, I was a school superintendent. Took that position very seriously, and I think we used the resources. It'd be nice if we had an endless supply of dollars. I don't. Portage County doesn't. That makes it all the more important to make sure that you're using it as effectively as you can. We did a cost benefits analysis on everything, and I'm hoping you do the same, but it's also important when you're getting that information to get it from as many different sources as you can. As I've sat in the audience, the vast majority of your information has been provided by Tegra. I have nothing against Tegra, but we also have to realize that the larger the project, the more money they're going to make. They're not necessarily an unbiased source of information. I think that the best decisions are the ones that get all the different perspectives and all the parties involved communicating. Communication isn't just a monologue, it's a dialogue, and it's ongoing, and that hasn't happened. I'm hoping that that can happen, and I would look forward to doing that with you in the future. That being said, I think it's also important to make a good decision, and a good decision is more important than a quick decision. You could make a decision tonight and go full speed ahead with a decision that I think would be a mistake. I think now is a good time to pump the brakes, get more information, have more communication, more dialogue, and hopefully more collaboration. So I would urge you to vote no.
Leif Erickson.
I'm not a very great speaker, but I will state I did serve with 5 people on this board, and I was proud to do that. In our times, we had a number of very tough things come up, and one of them was when we bought the business park over there. People said, why are you spending all that money way over there? And it was a tough deal to sell. And we pushed it through and did it anyhow. We did what was right. The same thing, we built the jail way back then. We built too small a jail. We had a budget. We tried to design the jail to the size of the money we had for the budget. We should have built a bigger jail, which we did not. Should have built a better jail, which we did not. And I'm just hoping that this board and chair have the sense to do what's right. I'm a representative of the town of Eau Plaine. I'm on the town board. My name is Leif Erickson. My address is 2501 County Road O, and our town board has discussed this, and we are in favor of this option.
Mary McComb.
Mary McComb, 2100 Elk Street in Stevens Point. This is a big chunk of money, and there's been little communication about it. I taught decision-making and organizational communication, and the primary rules we followed for effective decision-making were do your fact-finding completely and include all the stakeholders. It's been difficult in general to find information on this issue. On the Portage County government page, there's a tab, and it says current projects. And I thought, oh, great, I'll be able to find information easily here. Nope. Under that tab is information about the previous discussion that took place in roughly 2017 to 2019, and the latest entry is from 2019. So no information on the current situation with the Justice Center. I checked the news entries on the Portage County page. No news entries whatsoever informing the public of meetings, discussions, anything about this. I'm pretty good with a computer. I couldn't either read or download the countywide districts map, which I needed. This deficiency, and finally, city staff and officials have also testified to the lack of communication from the county to the city about this. This deficiency in outreach means an unbalanced decision-making process. Voices wanting a fancy new facility are really loud. But the county is making it really hard for those who think otherwise to participate and have a voice in this expensive decision.
Don Spearings.
Don Spearings. Spearings. I'm done. I got it. I'm done.
Yeah. Twice the done. Big Don. We'll call him Big Don. Got a little collectibles.
What a bunch of cocks. Hello, my name is Don Spearings. I live in the town of Amherst, and I'm the chairman for the town of Amherst. I had a business in the village of Amherst for many years. And one of the things that's always amazed me ever since I've been here, I live in Portage County. I don't live in Stevens Point County. I think we do not get representation as well as we should, because it seems to be centered around Stevens Point. Now, if I lived in Stevens Point, it'd be great, but I don't. I don't know what the population difference is, but I'm sure there's a lot of people. I think it's 71,000. Stevens Point, probably 25, 30. We have a right to representation too. And I believe the new location is the place to be. It's better for all the rural that I can see. That's what I got to say. Thank you.
Patty Dreyer.
Hello, good evening. I was county executive in 2017 when the downtown resolution, or the resolution to locate the facility downtown, was passed. I remember well about what I learned from finance in the process of planning for all different kind of capital projects, such as this one.
And one of the things that I see is exceptionally flawed in this process is to only analyze financials from the capital perspective, from the investment in construction, because those are one-time costs. Even if you have phased projects, they're largely one-time versus the operational costs, and I don't see any of that data. I asked my county board supervisor, had that been analyzed? The answer was no. And I'm thinking about how we are about to make a mistake if you vote yes for this $180 million, because you don't know what it will cost on an annual basis every single year on the budget. And I'm looking at the fact that when I was in office, I believe it was Health and Human Services that had estimated for me the number of trips that social workers make just to the Justice Center, so that to the courthouse here, so they could appear in various kinds of cases and so on. And the bottom line is even if you take my memory, it was well over 100 for all the different staff back and forth. That's 2 miles one way. And now you're going to increase the operational costs by 3 times or more to another side. So there's a lot more windshield time, there's a lot more fuel expenses, and that's just one department. So if we only analyze what the impact is for justice or jail, sheriff's office, and you don't look at the relationship with shared services like IT staff heading out, facilities maintenance staff heading out, even delivering mail, having access for health, for human resources for those employees somewhere else. This is an incomplete picture and a rush job. Most obviously a rush job. No matter how many years our county has had conversations about this, it hasn't been this very project, this very suggestion of this very borrowing. And I've never seen such a rush job. Even listening to the presentations from the consultants, if I can just hear the bias in the voice and the way that information was brought up. And I'm not the only one who's testified to that here tonight. Shame on anybody who votes yes without a complete operational analysis done to complement a construction analysis. Thank you.
Bill Mayer.
Who's next?
He's right there.
Maher.
One correction, I am not the mayor. I am Bill Maher, and I'm here to say that I support the county board on their decision that they made on the 18th. And I've worked on this project for years and years through the county's justice coalition. I went to see at least 8 jails and courthouses, and they have all the things that we're going to have in this one, and we do not have any of them here. I'm not going to go into details at this point, but it looks like this is the way it should go. And my wife and I want to express our appreciation for those that voted positively on the 18th, and hopefully positively again today, to give our police, our county deputies and sheriff and the judges and all the other people that have business in the courts, both the people that are being charged and the people that are being of service. I think they will find this would work really great once they get into it. But I've witnessed this in Janesville and Portage and Rhinelander. They've all made the investment in new buildings to accommodate this. So, and we have problems with the courthouse, we have problems with the jail. We have to do both. Thank you.
Raymond Akshuta.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Ray Akshuta, 10734 Lake Helen Heights, up Rosholt. I'm also the town chairman for Town of Albin. First of all, for the county board members and the chairperson, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. This is a very hard decision to make here. Tonight, I've been here and hearing all kinds of public comments. I have heard a lot of good comments for and against. I understand everything. It is a huge expense, what we're talking about here, 180 million. People comment about the money that you got to spend. Nobody wants to spend the money. It's my tax dollars. It's the people of our township's tax dollars. I take that all in consideration every time. I know as a town chairman that in the past, there has been road projects that we put off because we said, hey, the cost is too much. We can't afford to do it. Just a perfect example was 2 years ago that we got pricing on chip sealing on roads and crack filling. That has doubled on our same roads that we just did. I look at the trend of what was back when the first law enforcement center was built, what the cost was then. The county scaled back because they did not want to spend the extra money to build up higher on that. So they built the design that they have now. I think they're having serious regrets of not doing that. They could have had room for future expansion versus now they do not. We see the cost of what was proposed back in 2017 of what it was and versus to what it is now on money, what you are spending. No matter what, it's never going to get cheaper. You got to make forward progress here. We know something's got to be done. All I can say is if you do decide to go with this money, use it wisely. Do a lot of research into it. Try to use it the best you can. You got to plan for future expansion of the area, not where you're held to a smaller contained area, which I feel we are right now here. All I can say is use it wisely if you do decide to go through with this. Thank you very much.
Will Shader.
All right, hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Will Shader, 821 Prentice Street. I am also the Speaker of the Senate for our Student Government Association, representing about 7,500 students who go to school in this county. And we wrote a letter that I sent to all of you who do have emails earlier today, so I'd like to read that to you. Dear Executive Pavelski, Board Chair Al Haga, and Honorable Supervisors of Portage County, we are writing today to express our deep concerns regarding the plan to move Portage County's Justice Center to an as-yet undetermined greenfield site at the edge of Stevens Point. We at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point Student Government Association oppose this plan as a matter of accessibility to our constituents and as a matter of good governance. It seems that people often forget that there are roughly 3,000 on-campus students and over 3,000 off-campus students are residents of this city and this county, and the same as any other community member. And yet this important constituency is left out of almost every conversation in this county, this issue included. UWSP students are the backbone of many businesses in this community, and especially those in the downtown districts, I'm sure many of you know. The university itself is a critical pillar of the economy. Our students frequently use the Justice Center for a variety of reasons, whether it is to obtain a passport, voting, legal services, or to receive other official documents. Moving the Justice Center out of the downtown area will deeply impact our constituents, many of whom lack a car or other reliable means of transportation. Having the Justice Center within walking distance of campus and most off-campus housing is critical for the safety and success of the student body, the university, and this community. Additionally, the proposed $180 million plan will saddle the taxpayers of this county with expensive, unnecessary costs. Portage County and Stevens Point is already among one of the highest tax areas in the state. We at UWSP SGA wish to retain as many graduates as possible within the area, and we hope that your goal is the same. Having well-educated, high-earning college graduates stay within this community helps to grow the economy and ensure that Portage County remains a dynamic and vibrant community. That is becoming increasingly harder to do, however, due to high taxes and the state of the housing market. If students can keep more of their income and find a better home elsewhere, they will not stay here. This hurts UWSP, Stevens Point, and Portage County as a whole. The University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point Student Government Association opposes any plan to move the Justice Center to a new site at the edge of the city. Further, being believers in democracy and the will of the people, we call on the Portage County Board of Supervisors to hold a referendum so that the voters of this county, our students included, can have their voices heard on this critical issue. Sincerely, the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point Student Government Association, signed Kyle Beiersdorf, Student Body President, and Will Shader, Speaker of the Senate. Thank you.
Carol Malepsky.
Carol Malepsky, 2125 Clark Street. Thank you for your attention again. I'm speaking to the costs of sites. Questions continue to exist regarding the motivation to move the courthouse jail to the very edge of the county seat, the big box generic greenfield, and resulting costs. The county bought property in 2012 and 2014 to enhance the city properties for the downtown complex. 14 acres are available, do not have to be purchased with infrastructure and transportation in place. 400 parking spots are available downtown, and there's no cost for a new garage, a parking ramp, I should say. Two existing structural sound buildings stand next to and close to a new possible facility. The use of these buildings would lower costs is common sense. Judges have the state-required responsibility to facilitate reasonable access to the courts. The DA has indicated that most of his clients are downtown. Sheriff Lucas has assured us that either site would work. He just
I
wants
need to
one.
remind you to stay on course with the financial part of
I
it.
am. I'm in the process here. So what happened after the last vote in 2018? Certainly COVID happened, which dramatically decreased in-person meetings, hallway conversations, and just citizen interaction in the grocery store, and we still have a hangover from there. One of the county board supervisors had mentioned at one of the meetings, what exactly is the financial impact of the courthouse in a downtown area? I did find a UW extension study that shows that in a small rural county seat with a courthouse downtown, and obviously we are a small rural county seat of 25,000, there's a 4% increase in retail, 8.4% increase in businesses, but a more significant number is 25% increase in professionals. All of those numbers reference a city of 10,000. So obviously for Stevens Point, those numbers would probably increase. You see the result of working together to maintain and improve our River City downtown, which is in Portage County. The courthouse, the identity of the county seat, Stevens Point, has resided in downtown across Wisconsin cities. It is a tenuous balance for keeping the money downtown in a viable downtown for the cost of it, for marketplaces in central cities. The city has succeeded in many ways because of the proximity of UWSP, which the student had mentioned, the post office, the library, Midstate, which is a new asset, and the public square rehab. Again, all in Portage County.
Please wrap it up.
Okay, the Northern Distillery has moved from a strip mall to the downtown, as well as Father Fats. And finishing, there's no way that if the people that were looking for a hotel downtown, again, money's coming into the city and the county.
Your time is up. Please
Okay, just
let someone else go. I gave you a lot of latitude talking about the location, so.
All right. Well, recognize the identity of the city is the courthouse.
Again.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody that we're not on the agenda to talk about anything in the green space. This is about money only.
Friend.
Who's on deck?
After that is Don Butkowski.
You're on deck.
We'll take, if that other person doesn't show up, I'll take whoever's here first, so we can keep it moving. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Chairman and County Board Supervisors. I think one thing we can all agree on is that a facility is needed. And I've been listening to a lot of comments tonight. I have served on this board for a number of years, and I would say that we've spent at least 20 years hashing this back and forth, spent millions and millions of dollars, and we have a bookcase, not a bookshelf, but a bookcase full of studies. So to say this hasn't been looked at or overstudied, you know, I don't resent it, but I don't agree with that. I know we're not supposed to talk about the location, but just quickly, the reason I'm asking you to vote yes is because I have major concerns with the parking, future expansion of what we would do in 20 or 30 years if we hem ourselves in, and then the overall cost of the project, which I haven't heard any numbers regarding the city cost versus the greenfield location. So I'll try to stick to the point here. This vote this evening isn't really about, and you hear rural versus urban, Democrats versus Republicans, progressives, liberals, conservatives. This is really about building a county facility for the citizens of Portage County in the most effective way. As county supervisors, that is what you have been elected to do. You as a team represent the counties, I'd like to stress the word team, represent the county's best interest. Therefore, if the project is passed tonight for $180 million, that is in relationship to some figures that I have heard for the city site of $300 million, including a parking structure. I think this is a great opportunity for the green site and then for the city to redevelop its downtown area. I would ask you as good stewards of the taxpayers' monies to support the $180 million for the greenfield location tonight. Thank you. And I have to back up a little bit. My name again is Don Budkowski, 1845 Edgewood Lane, and I live in the town of Hull. Thank you for your time.
Trevor Rourke, and then Cindy Niebel.
Trevor Rourke, 601 Washington, Stevens Point. One of the goals of this project, as stated by supervisors multiple times throughout the meetings I've attended and have read about, is fiscal responsibility. Pursuing the most feasible, responsible path. But tonight's resolution intentionally ignores this goal. In other words, a vote yes is fiscally irresponsible. And it's going to be a huge tax hike for everybody here in the county. At least 5 major modifications to the Justice Center proposal were brought to the table. 1, removing the parking garage since it's completely unnecessary based on current supply and future demand. 2, retrofitting existing buildings like the annex instead of demolishing them. 3, not relocating certain buildings like the synagogue. 4, renegotiating surrounding lands with the city for a larger footprint. 5, not vacating Arlington Street. All of these were largely ignored. The public wants to know why. Why have modifications not been considered? Basically, we've been misled. Misled by the pseudo-public involvement process, misled by the Q&A sessions hosted by Tegra, misled by incorrect statements like the downtown is dead, and misled by intentionally inflated costs for the downtown site. We still need answers. We still need more information. We still need to see what modifications could look like. We still need healthy and more equitable public engagement. We've been misled. Truly, this vote should be put to referendum. But again, we've been misled. Please vote no. Thank you.
Cindy Mabel, and then Lisa Anderson.
Hello, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. My name is Cindy Nabel, 1100 Phillips Street in Stevens Point. I'm not going to talk about where you decide to have this. I am going to talk about the money. The request for 180 million has a lot of higher costs that hasn't been brought up. We're looking at, if you talk about place, you have to think about how much more money that will cost, because our greenfield areas and industrial area was bought in way back for us to bring in economy, manufacturing businesses. And so that was bought so that we could get jobs into our county. Spending that 180 million plus the loss of that land to be used for future economic benefits is going to create a higher cost. So it's not just this amount, it's more. I feel like this amount of money needs to have a referendum, just as we do for school districts and as we do now for even our street projects in the city, if it's over $1 billion budget. This ask of 180 million will affect many on their property taxes, not just in Stevens Point. It doesn't matter where it'll be built. It does need to be done. We all know that. But we're all at a bad timing right now for people. The costs are up high. People are in a downward swing of economics, and life is getting harder for people to afford to stay in their houses. So as each time our property taxes anywhere we're living goes up, that might be some of us that are on fixed incomes that need to leave and move out. And that's not sustainable or good economics either. Business 51 was used, from what I've read, as a bargaining item in the list that was sent to the city of items that they wanted, promises along with possibilities of land that they would approve. That had to be in it, though. Why, I don't know. Business 51 is not county, but that was thrown in there. And it bothers me because this money that you're asking to use or to get approved is being done with a very underhanded way. We need to come up with some better ideas, but we need more transparency and not these strong arming tactics or this back and forth between the county and the city. We're all residents of Portage County. It's a disservice to your positions that you hold for all of us to not look at this 180 million and see what it's costing us in so many more ways than just money. Thank you.
Lisa Anderson, and then Jane Johnson.
Hi, I'm Lisa Anderson, 9523 County Road SS from the village of Nelsonville. As a lot of people have said, $180 million is a lot of money, and my concern is that the vast majority of residents don't know what's going on here tonight, don't understand, the issues or the options. So given how long it took the village of Nelsonville to get funding for monitoring wells, and all the hoops that we had to jump through for years. And so I'll just interject here that the first well went in today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for village residents. It's just very, we're just so thankful. And that was a good use of money. But I have concerns because the amount of money that is being asked for this quickly and without residents getting a vote concerns me. I don't know enough about the two options. So I think something this expensive and controversial should go to a referendum that gives multiple options. And I think if that idea concerns you, that should be a red flag to you, that maybe if it wouldn't pass, that maybe this should be a no vote today. So please vote no. Thank you.
Jane Johnson and then Brian Formella.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Jane Johnson. I'm a resident of the Washington School and Gerke Park neighborhood in Stevens Point. I am not opposed to a new justice center. A good justice center and its auxiliary programs are important for a community and a county. But when I see this, a proposal that costs 2+ times what the other proposals cost, a proposal that did not come from community conversation or community input, a proposal that has very little evidence of benefiting the community or the common good, and when that proposal is being pushed forward without community input or community approval, the community, mind you, that provides a slug of the money to fund the proposal, the community for whom you are elected servants, not elected leaders, but elected servants to serve the common good. All that I can see that this proposal is about is power. And someone somewhere must be benefiting, but I do not believe that it will be Portage County or its citizens. As elected servants, you have been entrusted by us to be stewards of what we provide to you for the common good. Do not break this trust, a trust that is already weakened by the lack of community involvement in the choice of location. This is an issue that must have public and community discernment, discussion, and approval. And ethically, it should go to a referendum. Just because something is legal doesn't make it right. Anything less is an abuse of power. I urge you to vote no.
Ryan Formella and then Mike Juris.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Anderson O'Brien Law Firm, I'm Brian Formella, 209 Pine Bluff Road in Stevens Point. On behalf of the Anderson O'Brien Law Firm, thank you for all the public officials, all of you here who are seriously and steadfastly trying to grapple with this important issue. Two questions maybe to pose for you tonight, maybe rhetorically. I'm not expecting your answer here at this time. Number one is this: do county officials presently have a contractual right, also known as an option, to purchase property on the outskirts of the city at this time? If the answer is yes, please do tell. We'd like to know. I think all of us would like to know that bird in the hand to be able to analyze against the known of the downtown of Stevens Point. If county officials do not presently have a contractual right to purchase property on the outskirts, and if you find that the sellers on the outskirts are not there, are not willing sellers for the amount of acreage that the officials, that some of you want at a price that is affordable and acceptable to taxpayers, now that the hand has been tipped as to where you want to purchase the land, are county officials, or these same county officials, now prepared to take the property of some of those sellers through the powers of what is called condemnation or eminent domain, a process where a government can take property against the will of private landowners? That condemnation process itself could take years if it is contested in the courts. By law, you could be paying attorney's fees of sellers if they win the litigation. Not that there's anything wrong with attorney's fees, I say in jest. By contrast, city officials, we understand, are offering additional land downtown to the county at nearly zero cost, we understand. Therefore, no price negotiations and no need for condemnation and the accompanying litigation that may ensue. If the county is going to attempt any kind of purchase from landowners at the outskirts, you will also need to inform them of their right to engage in eminent domain litigation against the county. I don't know that that's been factored in yet into the calculations that you are considering. That information that they have a right to sue itself will likely increase the cost of land acquisition beyond a figure now calculated. Finally, thank you for fully considering this eminent domain aspect of the matter before you. It may be like the old adage that a bird in the downtown hand beats two in the outskirts bush. Thank you.
Mike Juris and then John Pearson.
Mike, I believe.
Okay. John Pearson and then Dave Barbier.
Right. John Pearson, 400 West Maple Ridge Drive, Stevens Point. I had thought about yielding my time because so much of what I wanted to talk about had been said so well by other people. But I feel like because this is such an important and enormous issue, it functions best when it's like democratically addressed. And I think that not taking this huge issue to the public for a referendum is to cheat democracy in this community, and I feel like that's unfair. So I am totally not in support of the $180 million borrowing. Thank you.
Dave Barbier and then Orrin Jacobson.
Hello, thank you all. My name is Dave Barbier. I live at 2510 Chippewa Drive, Plover, Wisconsin. So thanks for the civics lesson tonight. My son is in the third court there paying attention to his Nintendo, but he's understanding we're here for something. So I'll try and speak to the money issue since that's what's been requested. As noted, 180 million is a lot of money. 5 million for the transportation's a lot of money. 180 for the wetland, or 1 million for the wetlands, a lot of money. It's all a lot of money. I also want to say that I'm definitely in support of making sure we find the best solution for this. I also think we haven't done that diligence yet. There are lots of factors to be considered. I really agree with what's been said by previous folks that there's a lot of people in this county that don't know that this is even going on. So the idea of a referendum sits pretty well with me. That seems to be the most honest way to address a $180 million issue for the taxpayers and where their dollars are going to go. So in the end, yeah, I think you should vote no to this. I think there needs to be more work. I think there needs to be more transparency. I think there needs to be more communication. I think the people of this county deserve the right to have a say in where their money is going to be spent in the years to come. So I think the one of you who emailed me back and actually told me that I could still come speak to this tonight, so I'm appreciative for that person, because otherwise I might not have shown up my own self because I didn't realize that was an opportunity for me. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I think you should vote no to this $180 million expenditure. Thank you.
Orrin Jacobson and then Mike Wiesa.
Thank you, Board. Warren Jacobson, 1579 Church Street. I think I'm concerned about what appears to be a fear of increasing costs. And so I'd like to speak about my perspective of the economics of this choice. Right now, we're in a moment where people are exiting industries if they can't deal with the inflationary costs, but where the businesses, and particularly those involved in this decision that are stable and are going to survive these fluctuations, are making record profits. And I think you should all look and see. Throughout many industries, people are making record profits from the inflation that has taken place. And the reason for that is that at the moment significant inflation starts, it's not actually only a response to increased costs. It's also an opportunity to make record profits. $900 a square foot is not marginal cost to build whatever justice center we need. It's nowhere near that. We need time for competition to settle out the increase in costs so that what we do pay is actually the cost. Right now, the numbers that you have received are exploitive. If we make the decision now to approve 180 million and sign on to do this project, we are being exploited, taken advantage of in a moment where significant upheaval has caused spikes in the costs of doing just about everything. But that will settle out. And in the meantime, as all of us have seen the increase in property values significantly, also as a result of the same factors that have led to construction costs increasing, we're going to see two things. That's also going to settle out, and the assessed value of the properties throughout our county will rise, increasing the financial resources available to this board. That's the point in time for you to make this decision. Not now, not when one company has come in and given you a ridiculous cost to do this. The differences between your options are not based on detailed proposals and competitive bids, but rather based on consultants who want you to build now and some members of this board who think we need to decide right now. We need to wait until the construction industry is no longer in such flux. We need to wait until the property values in our county settle and we understand what the new assessments will look like. At that point in time, this board should solicit competitive bids that are more detailed to provide detailed options with competition to understand the cost that we should spend to address our issues. Today, you should vote no and go back to the drawing board to recruit competition to wait out these fluctuations. Thank you.
Mike Wiesa and then Mary Ann Leszewski.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. I am Mike Wiesa. I am the mayor of the city of Stevens Point. I'm here representing the mayor's office and citizen Mike Wiesa. And I want to thank you all for taking the time tonight, because it's going to be a long meeting, I'm sure, but you're no strangers to that. You're earning your money tonight. And I want to ask you something. I want you to take that per diem, and I want you to give it to me. Heck, give me a couple months per diem, because I'm going to buy you something, and you're going to like it. It's going to be everything you need. But I'm not going to tell you what it is, or where it is, how big it is, or what it's going to cost to operate. I just need you to trust me. The same trust that you put in Tegra, who by their own admission gave you numbers that weren't accurate. They didn't give you correct numbers for land acquisition because you don't have a location. They didn't give you correct numbers for the cost of infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, because they don't have it. You're being asked today to spend $180 million effectively blindly. And you're supposed to be representing my tax dollars, your tax dollars, and everyone in this room's tax dollars. Now go back to giving me that per diem. If you wouldn't do it with your own money, why would you do it with everyone's? $900 a square foot. That would be the most expensive building of this kind in the entire state of Wisconsin. In the other room is a developer, contractor, who says that's insane. Did anybody think to get a second opinion? And more importantly, you're being asked first and foremost to buy something that you don't know where it's going to be, what it's going to look like, how much it's going to cost to run, how you're going to get there. But you're being asked to do that in an open session. Now think about that. Would you buy a car and tell the dealer how much you're willing to spend? Because if you approve $180 million tonight, common sense tells me that when you go to bid, you're not going to see anything less than $180 million, are you? I know you got the authorization to do it, so I'm going to come in at $179,999,092. And you can keep that 2 cents to put it in for the next one. You got to vote no.
Mary Ann Lashesky, and then David Iden.
Mary Ann Lashesky, 1209 Wisconsin Street, Stevens Point. As has already been repeated so many times tonight, too many of the projected costs are based on estimates, conjecture, and probabilities to be considered sound or accurate enough to move forward with a final vote. And to stay on topic, the projected costs of citizens and staff traveling to a greenfield site is part of our financial considerations. The projected travel route to the proposed greenfield down Highway 10 East from, say, the Hilltop Bar to Burlesky Road is the most treacherous and stressful stretch of driving we have in Portage County that many avoid taking at every opportunity. It would make a very poor and expensive navigation route for the high volume of citizens and offenders needing the Justice Center site. As in contrast, the availability of 14 free acres downtown and
Mary Ann?
repurposing, I'm all, 3 words.
That's fine, just stay on the finance part.
Yeah, well, this is it. I'm saying this is cheaper. The availability of 14 free is finance, acres downtown, and repurposing existing structures, which is financially cheaper, would better serve us financially and logistically. Thank you.
David Iden. David Iden, and then Keith Kudrowski.
Dave Iden, 1008 Matilda Street. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Board, for having the ability to speak here. I'm urging a yes vote to move ahead, and there's a lot of debate here. There's a lot of going back and forth with no, 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 not a lot of yeses. I want to thank Robert Larson for his comments regarding what amounts to explaining as a win for the city. I'd also like to thank the county board, who has had the courage to come forward and stay with this because we need to get done. I got people going, we have to have a referendum. We need a referendum. It's going to get shot down like the last one was. Referendum is not the option here. We need to move forward for so many reasons. You know, we hear too much talk about the site. We don't need to go there because it's about the financing. I'm willing to bet and believe that approving $180 million here tonight doesn't guarantee it's spent, because we still have to look at site selection and the design phase as we move forward. Tegra, in my understanding, has done quite a lot of these facilities, not only in Wisconsin, but in the Midwest. That being the case, I would have a pretty good regard and trust for what they're doing. I think everybody agrees we need this. You know, I could go on with some other comments too, but everybody knows crime is on the uptick. You know, law enforcement has been bashed across the country. We're a nation of laws. We're also a local community of laws. We need to be able to uphold those laws, and we need a facility that's going to do that also. Drug crime is just awful. That also spurns all the other crimes associated with these things. At what cost in human life and suffering do we not move ahead and build this facility that everybody agrees we need and we know we need? I want to thank you for the time to speak today, and I want you to think real hard, because I know with the scrutiny surrounding everything going on here, they're going to watch every penny that's spent,
And just because we go ahead and approve yes and vote for the 180 million doesn't mean that it's not going to be watched quite seriously and heavily. I'm as more frugal than 95% of you people in this building today. I'm not about spending that money, but at some point, this is our duty and our responsibility here in our local community. This is a county facility, not a city facility. And then we talk about, oh, the travel time. Wow, we're not driving an hour across Milwaukee here. I don't think there's a judge or an attorney who can't afford to drive 15 minutes to the new green site, yet to be determined. And I know the mayor came out in support of allowing parking if the facility was going to be downtown here and approving this. I think he would probably be more than willing to work towards public transportation options to move forward for the new facility at the green space also. Thank you again for your time.
Keith Kudrowski, and then Andrea.
Keith Kudrowski, 1536 Water Street. So, since this has been going on for the last few months, I've been trolling social media, and because that's what I do. Noticing the theme, detractors of this project, now I think I've seen them all here in person today. So, the county has hired, the company the county hired to do this project don't know what they're doing, and the project is poorly laid out and overpriced right here. I looked up some information on BWBR in Dewberry, who was approved in 2018 by this board by a 19-4 vote. Many of you are still here, Vinny, Dubeck, Medine, Honnold, and Gifford. You all approved this company to trust them to do what was best for this community, and they did their due diligence. This has been proposed in other places other than there. Here's a list of some of these people. Now, if you've seen they're not qualified: City of Waukesha, City of Madison, State of Minnesota, Sherburne County, Wisconsin Department of Corrections, State of Minnesota, Minnesota Pollution Control, Minnesota Department of Labor, State of Minnesota, Minnesota Department of Transportation, Minnesota National Guard, Ramsey County. I could go on, and I will. UW Health, UW River Falls, UW River Falls again, UW Madison, UW Stout, UW Platteville. So you tell me that the UW system doesn't hire a reasonable company to do their business? I know that's not true because you all laud UW Stevens Point every time I come in this building. This is a partial list of who they've done. Do you see a pattern here? This company does their due diligence. I just try to figure out, are these detractors trying to see UW makes a practice of hiring idiots or what? Anyhow, back to, and I hear some complaints about point two, and that the mayor says we only use one person. I've seen them do that. So I think we have done more than one person. We did the BWBR, who worked with Tegra. Point never did a second person. It was AECOM and AECOM only. That's all they ever did. They listened to nobody else. So I suggest stop playing with Legos, Duplos, put away Microsoft Paint. The county clearly hired an expert in the field to make our future justice center safe, efficient, and fiscally sound. This is as close as we've ever been to, gotten to getting this project off the ground. And this, in reality, is the only way we're going to bring together enough factions to get it done. Please vote to fund the Justice Center tonight and stop playing games with people's lives. Thank you.
Andrea, and then Kathy Seller.
Andrea Olson, 410 Franklin Street. Annex is 35,000 square feet on 1.5 acres. The courthouse is 47,000 square feet on 1.5 acres. The jail is currently 18,000 square feet on 1.1 acres. So currently that's about 100,000 square feet on 4.1 acres, 6K less than the new build. $500,000 spent on internal needs studies over 20 years, zero spent on the external impact of a justice center downtown or greenfield site, and UW Outreach would do a study and the county did not reach out. Why? Would they possibly not like the results of that? But still, I want the best location that has optimal positive impact on our community at a logical price point. How does $180 million make sense? Callaway County in Missouri, their jail just opened up. They built one with 192 population capacity for $19 million. They increased the variety of cells, medical, mental crisis, true work release, and all that. I heard that Hoover might be discontinued if it's at a greenfield site, and that's sort of interesting. The jail was built as efficiently as possible, built for a lifetime, not just 50 years like we're doing here, to do this all over again in 30 years, to give 20 years to discuss again, blah. Okay, wait, Callaway County also tore down 2 buildings, ran into bad soil, and still built a 3-story, 4-court justice center, a secure parking lot with gates for justice-related parking, and above that for others, plus 50 additional spots, $12 million. So 19 million plus 12 million is $31 million. That is what the 50,000 spent on needs-based studies has determined too. So 31 million. Why not save on design plans and use their plans? Just update the cost to current cost if the footprint fits. And you know what? It fits in 2 places. No shoehorning, both with 4+ extra acres at the end of the day for expansion. Planning for expansion, of course. This is a common practice too. Just-in-time building has been used on every job site, even in your home when you're buying groceries, a single avocado or 12-pack of macaroni and cheese. You determine when to reorder based on a schedule. This should not be used as a fear tactic for anything. I did this on a refinery shutdowns in a previous lifetime. Want to save more and build more efficiently in months versus years? Look at modular builds. So again, $31 million for what Portage County wants and needs. Double, triple, or quadruple it, and the totals are 62 million, 93 million, 124 million. Why 180 million? When payment is tied to a final build cost like here, unless that's been thrown off the books and rescinded, you get a costly build. Dewberry's commission is 7.5% of the final build price, unless that, again, has been rescinded. And Dewberry claims that they already designed the courthouse on page 9 of their brochure online. 7.5% of 180 million is 13.5 million. 7.5% of 31 million is 2.32 million. 11.175 million
Please wrap it up.
of taxpayers' money difference. Most people incentivize builds by rewarding businesses or individuals for coming in under budget or ahead of schedule, not rewarding a company for the most expensive per square foot build in the state, if not the country. So thank you. Please consider 180 million is a lot, and give options for a referendum. It doesn't have to be a yes or a no situation. Location.
Please wrap it up.
Amount.
Kathy Seller and then Crowdy.
Is anybody coming?
Ella Jansen and Jess Anderson.
Good evening, board. I'm Jessica Anderson. I'm on 1557 Church Street, right down the road. As a community member of this city and county, I've struggled to really find any information about this topic, besides receiving some files and plans from community members. When I look on the community or on the county board website, it's really hard to find any information about this. So I'm wondering how, as a public citizen, can access the information I need to be an educated member Because if we are supposed to trust in our representatives, then we need to see these decisions being made and that they are in line with what is most considerate of every side of a foreseen need. Similar to the process of applying for a grant, a project should be convincing and comprehensive enough to express its purpose and overwhelming need. For projects with large impacts, in this case, which with a very large price tag, requires extensive research and information gathering, as well as the voices of those who it will impact. I ask that you vote no to this new $180 million Justice Center to be built until master plans are updated with specific financial, technical, community, and ecological considerations and published for easy public access, as well as a public education campaign to be run in order to gather more feedback, and for this project to simply slow down to match our current economic market. We should not be investing in new infrastructure during this current economic climate. Thanks, Oren, for that detailed information about the overvalued quote for this project. And I also ask for this public project master plan for it to make information easy for people to access and understand. And I call for this issue to be brought to referendum. Thank you.
Ian Judge.
I also was going to wait and give everybody else a turn because I agree with so much happening tonight, but I would urge the board to vote no. I think we should improve existing infrastructure downtown and keep it downtown. So, and I know so few people that know about this issue, and I feel grateful that I could read about it on Facebook because otherwise I wouldn't be here tonight, and I'm trying to spread the word, but there's so many people in this county who don't know anything about what's going on here, and it's sad. So but I'm grateful to be here and tell you my thoughts tonight. Thank you.
Is that it? Mike, did you want to start this off? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Let's relax. We have no more people from the public, so we're moving on. Review and approval of April 18th, 2023 minutes. Motion by Supervisor Dubek, second by Supervisor Keller. Corrections or changes? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution and ordinances number 2. Initial resolution authorizing not to exceed $5,930,000 general obligation bond or promissory notes for highway improvement projects. Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Matchakowski. You gonna read it?
This is resolution number 104-2022-2024, submitted by the Finance Committee. This requires a 3-4 vote of members-elect.
Discussion. If there's, we get set. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor vote yes, and opposed vote no.
Supervisor Pataki?
You're muted. Stan, you're muted. Thumbs up or...
Aye.
Supervisor Olson?
Yes. Supervisor Hano and Soik. Yep.
Motion carries 24-0.
Number 3, initial resolution authorizing not to exceed $1,490,000 taxable general obligation bonds or promissory notes for wetland mitigation projects.
This is resolution number 105-2022-2024, submitted by the Finance Committee. This vote requires a 3/4 vote of members-elect.
Motion by Supervisor Larry Rakowski, seconded by Supervisor Oki. Discussion. This is a project we've been working on for a long time. And this one is actually something that will benefit probably everyone for quite a ways. This will be something that we'll probably get all of our money and then some back out of it into the future, so. Supervisor Matt Chakowski.
Forget it, Mr. Chair. I don't want to say what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, vote yes, and opposed, no.
Supervisor Pataki?
Aye.
Supervisor Olson?
Yes.
It's still stuck on that one.
Motion carries 24-0.
Number 4, initial resolution authorizing not to exceed $180 million general obligation bond or promissory note for government facility master plan building project.
This is resolution number 106-2022-2024 submitted by the Finance Committee. This requires a 3/4 vote of members elect.
I need a motion to put it on the floor. Motion by Supervisor Soik, seconded by Supervisor Barry Jakowski. Now, Mike, I'll have you talk, please.
So, is it okay to address a few of the public comments for clarity as well, or do you want to just go over the?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Mike.
You don't need a microphone.
Oh, we don't have a.
Which people in the.
Yeah, where's the?
Yeah.
Not the door pad.
All right, thanks everyone, appreciate that. So, Mike Van Cly with Tegra, met most of you. We've had a lot of conversations leading up to tonight. So, to go through a few things. First, I just want to start off, when we were originally hired, one of the first things that we did was work with the Space and Properties Board Committee to put together a list of goals that we were going to use to define the actions moving forward for the project. Those goals were shared over time, and no one objected to them. So they are what we proceeded with as the goals for the project. So to remind everyone, the goals for the project were mitigating dangers and risks with updated facilities, ensuring safety while increasing efficiency through pursuit of the most fiscally responsible path forward. We're going to look at enhancing functionality, technology, safety, and efficiency through modernization, and we're going to look to secure an optimal site for countywide benefit. Those are what we were using as we worked the process forward to present the two options that we did in, I think it was January 31st, if I remember the date correctly. So just to kind of set the table, that's what we've been using as our roadmap to keep us moving in that direction. A few things that were talked about tonight were the number and the bids and how can we be there right now? Should we have second opinions? Things like that. So just to remind everyone, we went forward with a construction manager at risk contract. That's really important because this isn't a hard bid. These are budgets at a conceptual stage. We selected our construction manager at risk through a competitive RFP, request for proposal process. We had 4 people that responded. Adolphson and Peterson, Findorf, Myron, and Samuels Group. The county vetted those 4 and selected the partner based on qualifications, costs, and all the criteria that were listed out. So that was our first competitive process that we went through to ensure that we were spending the money responsibly for Portage County. We brought Findorf on board as our construction partner. Their main goal in this early stages is to help us with scheduling and budgeting. That's what they do. It's what they do well. And it was really important that we got them involved and be part of the team. Okay, just want to make sure we hit. So there's been a lot of talks about, or a lot of discussion tonight about bidding and rebidding. That step hasn't happened yet. We will bid every component of this project once construction documents are done. We are months, if not a year away from construction documents. Every part of this project will be competitively bid. The final cost will be determined by the market at the time at which this project is bid. So just remember that. Right now, we are looking to approve a budget so that we know what to move forward with. We've always delivered it as a sliding scale, and we've always explained that there's a lot of decisions yet to be made. We could hopefully, through the right decisions, and if people, depending on what the county decides they want, drive below the $165 million. But it's decisions yet to be made. So it's really important to remember that. We've been fiscally responsible when we brought Findorf on board. We will continue to do that as we bid this out in the future. Right now, we are at conceptual design. The next step is schematic design. That is when we can start to dial in that number further. Typically, we would move further into schematic design and then be able to present you with a number better than a range. There's been discussions among the committee, and we are presenting the number today because of the concern that if we were to spend $2.5 million on schematic design, and then the board chose not to move forward, that would be money spent on nothing. So we feel that it is less risky to make sure that we have commitment from the board to move forward with the project before we move forward and spend that $2.5 million. Or if we did it on each site, we'd be spending $5 million on schematic design. So just wanted to be clear, there's very, very deliberate actions that have been taken at this point to get us where we are. So now, if you could put up there, second page.
Okay.
Maybe zoom in a little if you can. So there's been a lot of discussion about $900 a square foot. Unfortunately, within construction and design world, there is not a specific definition of how you want to calculate dollars per square foot. The math, yes, relatively simple, but what is the number that you start with? So I would say generally you use construction costs, but $900 per square foot that people have been discussing here tonight is all costs, the entire project, which then is definitely going to make it disproportionate to somebody that's only comparing the hard construction costs. So we took the numbers that we had, people have seen these before, and we broke them down a little bit further in the hopes that it would help define how we got to where we are right now. So maybe scroll down. There you go. That's perfect right there.
Great.
So there's a low side, a base, and a high side. The base number down at the bottom, total anticipated cost of $165 million is the number that everyone has seen before. The low side is realistically everything goes perfect, decisions are made, no bells and whistles. Could we drive it down that low? It would be difficult, but possibly. High side, if we want to put some, I don't even want to say nicer features, but things aren't perfect. The world is a little bit more complicated. It drives it up more towards the high side. But the reality is, if you start at the top and look, construction costs, 124, 134, 147 million. That drives to 681, 736, or 809 per square foot. But then if you move down a little bit further, it breaks out jail, courthouse, site, general construction costs, down to soft costs, and then the total anticipated costs. So right now, if we want to just look at the base, middle of the road cost, we're looking at a jail somewhere in the neighborhood of $699 per square foot, the courthouse somewhere in the neighborhood of $577 per square foot, and all of the other numbers are support costs to get up to that point. And if you scroll down just a little bit more, there you go. So just to clarify again, so soft costs, within that number, land, real estate development requirements, architectural and engineering fees, traffic and parking consultant, project management, building permit, streets, curb, gutter, traffic signals, environmental assessment, all of the things that aren't bolted into the building. I've heard people describe it as if you tip the building over and shook it, what falls out, right? Those are the types of things that are in the soft costs. So all of that, when you add on top of the construction cost, sure, you can make the $904 per square foot math calculation work, but the reality is you have to be careful with what you're comparing it to. So that's really the gist of what we wanted to explain tonight, because I know there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of questions about it.
So I've heard people say that we don't have money in there for sewer, water, any of the infrastructures, roads, that somehow that's going to be the burden on the city and the city taxpayers.
That's incorrect. We've made assumptions for all of that.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Mike? Stan Pataki?
I just have a statement.
Oh, do you have a question for Mike?
No.
Okay, then hold on. Supervisor Splinter.
What conservatively?
Use the mic, please.
I'm sorry. What conservatively is the cost of waiting per month as this process goes on?
We're still about $800,000 a month in escalation and inflation is what we've been seeing.
So over 10, well, it was delayed 10 months, it would be $8 million.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what a lot of people aren't taking that into account with what we're trying to vote tonight, I don't think.
Anybody else? Thanks, Mike. Okay. I don't know who to ask this, but, well, I think Mike touched on it a little bit, the fact that we can't have competitive bids because of the fact that it's $2.5 million for the blueprints, and we have a history at this county of not approving or not funding things, and here we are. So I don't know how we ever get past that. I've had people also say that, you know, they needed more information, we've been working on this for 15, 20 years. I know that I've stood in the annex with the sheriff and Mr. Medine and some other folks, and we look around and it's like 2-3 people showed up in the past. You know, it's like, what do we have to do to get the people to come down here? And I've also heard people tell us that there's many, many people in the county that don't know this is happening. We've had 2 committees of the whole, we've had 3-4 board meetings, we've had 4, 5, maybe 6 space and property meetings where we've talked about this. And I don't know, I'm really looking for help how we can get the word out to the public. We don't have a viable newspaper anymore. We've got one that the Metro Wire that has stuff out there daily or whatever, but the Stevens Point Journal, there's not usually a reporter around. I've been contacted by 2 of them, the Gazette and the Metro Wire this week. So, but do the people read those? They read Facebook, but I don't go on Facebook. So I don't know what the answer is or how we're supposed to overcome that or how we get the information out there. I'm curious, that's what's being said about our website and why that information can't be found, because my understanding and everybody else's, I would hope, everything that's been at a meeting is available and how to collect that. And we've got funding. We're trying to work on that. We're looking at a position for a person into the future here that can constantly oversee that. But right now, it's imperfect. So where do we want to go from here? Let's see. Who wants to start it off? Supervisor Splinter. Oh, Stan asked first. I'll let Stan go.
Go ahead.
Stan, go ahead.
Good afternoon. A lot of you present here today remember me as your former sheriff. Let me start by telling you a little about myself. I am 82 years old, and for most of my adult life, 58 years, I have spent in public service protecting and serving the citizens of Portage County. 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, 37 years in law enforcement, and 17 years as a county board supervisor. 30 years of the 37 years in law enforcement, I was a manager. As a manager, I kept tight reins on the budgets to make sure your tax dollars were used wisely. As I did when I was sheriff, I contacted every town chairman before I would make a major decision that would affect their township. I contacted every chairman within the last 3 or 4 days and to talk to him about the $180 million and the building of the new courthouse and jail. And they all stated they would support the $180 million for funding the new courthouse, jail in the green space. I feel that the safety of our citizens and deputies is of utmost importance. In the past, we have had 2 serious accidents involving our deputies responding to serious calls. One was a deputy responding to a call of someone trying to kill one of the Pulver police officers. On the south side of Stevens Point, our deputy with his red lights and siren on collided with a car driven by a young lady. This young lady was killed as a result of this accident. Another accident involving a deputy responding with a red light and siren to a serious accident on I-39 North was T-boned at the intersection of Main and Division. This accident caused injuries to the deputy that made him get a disability and he lost his job. On April 18th of this year, the majority of the county board voted to build a new courthouse and jail in a green space. Today, we will vote to fund this project. If a supermajority votes yes, we will, after 28 plus years of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on studies, finally build a new facility. If we vote no, we will be back to square one with costs going up daily. Just a few facts. In 2009, there was in the Stevens Point Journal front page stated that the cost of a courthouse and law enforcement center was $29.5 million. 14 years later, it is $180 million. You will hear tonight that downtown, during the board deliberation, that the downtown site would cost $100 million more than the green site. Let's do the right thing for the taxpayers of Portage County and vote yes. Thank you.
Supervisor Splinter.
I rarely write down in advance of what I'm going to say. I can pretty well do it off the cuff, but this is an important night. So just take 30 seconds here for what it's worth. During the past 2 years, I have not heard anyone from any of the supervisors or even the 100 general public comments saying, we don't need a new courthouse and jail. The one we have right now is modern and safe. We don't need it. I've never heard that, not once tonight. If you feel a new courthouse and jail is needed, then vote yes on the funding. And let's make this a reality after 20 years of indecision by past boards. We cannot afford to kick the can down further into the future for our kids at $800,000 a can. Now is the time to act and get this construction process moving forward. And I thank you very much.
Supervisor Sislevich.
I guess a month ago, it was not about when to build it. It was where we're going to build it. We're all in pretty much uniform that we're going to build this thing. And listening to 41 people tonight speak, and I'm glad they showed up to voice their opinion. But the thing I can't understand, a month ago, we all wanted the courthouse. It was not about the funding. But now, the people that voted for downtown are against it because of the funding. I don't get it.
Anybody else? Supervisor Soik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to address a lot of this to you.
Closer to the mic.
I'm going to address a lot of this to you, Mr. Chair, because you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
So here tonight, what I'm hearing is nobody wants to spend this kind of money. And I'm going to ask you to please include that sheet of names in the packet moving forward if this comes back for a city site. And I'm going to ask the people that showed up tonight that didn't want to spend 180 million to come back and say they don't want to spend the 280 or 300 million that it's going to cost to shoehorn it downtown. I also heard, Mr. Chair, about the experts. And I want to ask you, Mr. Chair, why were the experts not listened to a couple years ago when we had a resolution come forward about the Business 51, 4 lanes versus 2 lanes? Where were the people saying we need to work together as a county and the city? We had the sheriff, the expert, tell us how dangerous it would be. We had the former sheriff a few minutes ago tell us about a tragic accident, lights and sirens. Our sheriff and our law enforcement are the experts. So I ask you, Mr. Chair, where were they then? Rhetorical question. You're going to get 1 vote out of me for funding. 1. If this comes back 2 months, 2 years, 10 years, and I'm still on this board, if the people I represent want me to be here representing them, you will not get a yes vote out of me other than tonight. I sat years ago where Sheriff first ran, and he said we didn't need a new jail. I got on the board, I listened to him, I asked him what changed. He said, everything. Look at where we're at. At the time, when the sheriff first ran, I asked Mayor Wiesa, why are you supporting somebody that doesn't want a new jail? Mayor Wiesa at the time, just like he is now, wants the new jail, wants the new courthouse, wants it to be downtown. He's gonna get it in his city, but they are stuck that they have to have it down here. And for some of these experts that should not be dabbling in politics, one of them who used to dabble in politics, I'm glad he stayed out of it. But this is going to be the courthouse they're going to be in the next 20 years until they retire if we don't get this done tonight. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll thank you, I'll thank the board, and I'll remind the board once again, you will get 1 yes vote out of me on this. Just 1.
I've seen a few hands. Supervisor Medine.
Just a simple comment on the experts. I couldn't agree more that Tegra and a number of the members of BWBR are experts. Experts at building new buildings. They have not shown any expertise in any renovation of existing buildings. And there was one planner that was part of BWBR in the first presentation on January 31 of 23. And I thought we might get some information that would give us a little bit more information about how the various plans may fit for the county. And she was no more to be seen. So we really had no planning expertise or really any expertise for renovation of new buildings exhibited
to us at all. But we have had very good experts on building new buildings, which is, I don't think was a good, would really answer a lot of the questions that were put before this group tonight.
Supervisor Morassi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we all know and support that we have to have a new justice center here in Portage County for the safety of our deputies and for our judges and the defendants and the people who utilize the services. It is key to their survival as defendants or folks who need rehabilitation that we have these facilities. I think the question we need to ask is, at what cost do we build this building? And what I'm seeing is, if we choose a location that we have, which is inextricably tied to the funding, location and funding are tied together because we've already made that choice. We have a lack of access of who utilizes the services, and it furthers their hardship. So this is a criminal justice issue. This is a social justice issue. We have an uncalculated economic impact to local businesses because the questions that we asked were never answered. And I get it. It takes time to answer those questions. We also have two sites that aren't apples to apples, and they shouldn't be, right? We have a greenfield site that is is a blank slate. It's a palette. We have a canvas that we can paint on whatever we want and make it possible. And then we have a downtown site, which requires a really thoughtful dialogue about how we actually populate that space and how we utilize that space in a way that is practical, pragmatic, affordable, and functional, because form and function are interrelated. So we can't have numbers that compare Greenfield to downtown because they're not even the same fruit. We also have had a lack of inclusion of marginalized population in this discussion. That was brought up tonight. I thought that was very well stated. Tossing aside the sustainability of the downtown design plan by Venture, I think is foolish. We had a downtown plan that actually could have worked, and I would encourage BWBR to look at that should this topic come up again and just check out the ideas. There's no, you don't have to do it, but check out the ideas and see how we can meld those ideas to be a better fit for us. What I'm really concerned about is not Tegra and not BWBR and definitely not Findorf, because I've worked with them. I've worked with Tegra on the healthcare center project, and I know their process, and it's transparent, and it's open, and it's inclusive, and we had a really frank and formal discussion about how we were going to make that project a success. What I worry about is the questions that were being asked about this Justice Center in particular. I know the questions that were asked when we did the healthcare center because I was asking them, and I was asking tough ones. Nate can attest to that. I was looking at all the different site facilities because I am a construction professional. I do this stuff for a living, not on their scale, but I do this work. But I'm worried that the right questions weren't being asked about this project, and that's not on Tegra or BWBR. They're doing what they're asked to do. This is on leadership. And I'm afraid that I too am skeptical, much like the public is, that the thumb was on the scale of which direction they were pushing this project to go. I trust our staff. I know they're providing reliable data. The staff does what leadership asks of them. We're being told now if we don't fund this project, it is dead. I think that is a zero-sum game for the future of our county and our city and our municipalities and towns. Going into this with an attitude that this project is dead if we don't fund it tonight is the equivalent of children on the playground taking their ball away and going home because you won't play by their rules. It is a zero-sum game. We can't do this any further. We're being asked to vote on a hypothetical. I get that. It's a conceptual drawing at this point. And we're going to get those plans once we decide to put some money down. I get that as well. But we have a process that has been a little bit flawed, in my opinion. So my passionate plea to the board is, you know, depending on what happens tonight on the vote, I want to encourage that we actually have some real negotiations, real good faith conversation about the direction of this project. We know the surest path is downtown. We own the land. We have a partner, a very willing partner. We have the civic support. All we need now is a little bit of creativity and the willpower to bring a resolution back to support a downtown site. And that's going to take a tough conversation and tougher questions by our board and the people who are on the committee, the building committee, to make those asks to push us forward in the right direction. I have a lot of hope. Maybe I'm naive in this. Heard that child on the Zoom up there, and I thought, man, that puts some perspective on this, right? Like, that's my kid up there on the Zoom call. And that gave me perspective and hope that we can make a decision that will not impact them negatively into their future.
Supervisor Moresi, please wrap it up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am finished.
Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to address a couple of things that have come up recently. A comment was made about an email that was sent and sharing a study by UW Extension. And I read that study, and something became very clear to me about that. Businesses used to come close to the county seat, and a long time ago, they were all closer together because we didn't all have cars. In fact, we didn't have cars, right? Everything was close, but everything was smaller. The community was smaller. But as time came along, everything grew and it grew and we got congested. But the businesses stayed kind of in the county seat. Does anybody really know why that was? I do, because I'm old enough to remember this thing called long distance service. The county seat could receive calls from anyone in the county free of charge. And anyone in the county could receive calls or place calls to and from the county seat free of charge. Now, if you're going to own a business and you're going to rely on your telephone, those of us that remember, from the time between 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, to use a telephone was incredibly expensive. It was one of the biggest expenditures in owning a business. Now we have internet protocol phone systems, so we call everyone on our network for free. We all have cell phones, and there's competitive action with the cell phones. So all of a sudden, we don't have to pay for long distance calls anymore. So everything is starting to spread out a little bit. So that's the UW study. The study's flawed. Well, I hear people say it's flawed, and what I'm really hearing is, I didn't get the answer I wanted, so I don't like the way it was done. Talk about picking up your ball and taking it home. A week ago, the conversation was, we needed a new justice center. $180 million was fine last week. In fact, $280 million was fine last week, as long as the thing was built downtown. The mayor talked about including the community. We need a referendum. We had a referendum on the healthcare center, and people voted on it. What did they know about it? They knew that somebody took the time to drive all over the county and put up little signs that said, vote yes. That's what the average person in Portage County knew about the healthcare center. Most of them, and some even talking tonight, said, didn't even really know I could attend these meetings. Another one said, I couldn't find information on any of this. Well, the minutes of every meeting, committee meeting, county board meeting, are posted on the website. They're quite easy to find. And I use that website a lot. And I show a lot of people how to use it, and they're amazed at how easy it is to find the district map so they know who they're voting for. All they had to do is look or have someone point it out. Right? So none of this is that hard. But the mayor talks about including the community. Did the city talk to anyone in the community before they rushed out and bought a piece of land recently? Just to make sure the county wasn't going to be able to get it? On that website, you can go to the Register of Deeds department and then go to build a mailing list. And when you do that, you can zoom in on places in this community, and then you can just rest your cursor on a piece of property. You don't even have to click anything. And it tells you who owns it. You'd be surprised to know how many parcels right around here the city owns. How many of you got phone calls asking if it was okay if the city bought all those parcels of land? One of the board members here happens to own 5 pieces of property, rental properties, all right next to these buildings. I wonder why he wants it downtown. But maybe if we build this somewhere else and we bring in income generating activity in this area, those 5 pieces of property would go up in value at a much faster rate.
Pat, your time's up.
Crap. I was on a roll.
I don't know what to tell you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Medine.
Since I have been personally maligned,
3 minutes.
I'd like to clarify my background, because the word ethics entered the picture. I started my family just south of the County City building in 1976. There were 3 young children that I had, Joanne and I. There was a fraternity house in our backyard. It was an old house, 3 stories, a lumber baron, and in not good shape. The neighbors looked to me to quell the all-night noise and vulgarity. So I talked to the young people a lot and had law enforcement help me a few times. When the building came up for sale and another fraternity was looking to buy it, I reluctantly bought it myself. And now we have a counseling center in that building that is welcomed by the neighborhood because the counselors help people in the Central City area overcome behavioral problems. Within that building, there's one small, minute room where there's one intermittent attorney. I guess if helping to clean up the neighborhood and being a spokesman for my people in the Central City area with limited income and uncertain transportation makes me unethical, then I plead guilty.
Supervisor Honnell.
The 2017 resolution passed by Space and Properties Committee favored a downtown site, and the architectural plans described buildings adjacent to existing county, buildings on county-owned lands. Now, I'm not an architect, but this plan contradicts the current proposals, which state that there's insufficient land to build upon. And why, what's changed other than turnover on this board? As a county supervisor, I'm being asked to support a multi-million-dollar project to serve county residents for many years, and I'd have no idea where it's going to be constructed. If there's a prospective green space within the city, it's not been shared with me or other supervisors that I am aware of. That's a lot of money to spend on an unknown spot. I really appreciate the perspectives that have been expressed by supervisors and by the public. But it's the opinions of the former and current judges that the courthouse and additional buildings need to be located in the city center that carries the most weight for me. They are the leaders in our community who have the most firsthand knowledge of the users of civic services. There's an assumption that we have to build a 200-bed jail, which will be outgrown in the future, and so we have to build with the idea that it can be expanded. But I don't agree with that. I do not believe that's a given. Unlike some surrounding counties, I think Portage County is more progressive and is more willing and able to expand its diversion programs that are proven to work, that can prevent incarceration and reduce recidivism. And many of those services exist right here in Stevens Point. And they could be expanded to serve potential offenders as well as those already in our judicial system. For example, Mid-State Technical College, UWSP, CAP Services, Health and Human Services, a variety of modified housing, including sober houses, halfway houses. Access to these supports is crucial to rehabilitation efforts. And in the long run, it is cheaper and more humanitarian for everybody in our county to embrace that judicial philosophy. We have the judges, we have a sheriff who wants to bring his prisoners back to Portage County so that they can access the support services that we offer here that other counties don't. And finally, I know the city has not been a partner in these plans, and I don't know who's not talking to who. But I was impressed with one of the speakers tonight from the gentleman from Lanark who said, for crying out loud, collaborate. If we're not collaborating between the county and the city, then we've got no business making a decision tonight about spending $180 million to move out of town. And I do think that the nature of the businesses that are growing in our city, they're small, they're privately owned, they're operated by local citizens, and they are not, the profits are not feeding some corporation. And I think that those concerns of the people who are trying to rebuild the city center have been dismissed. The other thing, finally, one of the other speakers, I don't know what his name was for sure, he was speaker number 13, Keith. $180 million is not a lot of money to spend if you're talking about rehabilitating people. It's a lot of money to spend if you want to lock people up and throw away the key and pay for incarceration rates 15, 20, 25 years from now. It's not a lot of money to spend if we invested in a civic center that values and believes that people can be rehabilitated and deserve that opportunity. So those are the reasons. I had to put them down in paper about why I'm going to vote against the funding tonight. It's not easy because I know we need a new jail, and I trust Sheriff Lucas when he says we desperately need one. But for all of those reasons, I can't support this kind of money being spent on a place I don't even know where it is. Thank you.
Supervisor Honnold, I heard you say that you wanted to see the people rehabilitated, but it kind of contradicts when you're talking about the fact that having a civic center, when we're talking about now we ship those 35 people to Wapaka and they get no any kind of services there. And I'm not trying to dispute anything, but I'm just trying to make sure that you understand that if we had the 200-bed jails, that those services and the social workers and the sheriff can help me out with some of this.
Absolutely.
those would be in that wouldn't, we're not just looking at incarcerating people in those 200. And
I
because I heard
totally
you say
agree.
both things and I was just a little confused.
Yes,
so.
no, I understand that,
Okay.
but there's no reason why that shouldn't be occurring in the civic center. I'm in full agreement that we need a jail, and I trust Sheriff Lucas's numbers. But I don't think we have to plan that it's got to increase and increase. There are diversion programs that are financially much more favorable to the taxpayers in Portage County.
And we incarcerate far less than any of the counties around us, and
We can
because
do
of
better.
those programs.
Right.
So, and I've heard this, this collaboration with the city. Mr. Karnowski and I, we text, we talk, we're in the same building, we are all the time. We've had meetings with staff and their staff, but part of the talking about the new site or what it is I think it's the coincidences that happen that go along with it that make me pause. Back when we collaborated with the city and talked about building one out on Highway 66, talked with the city. The city bought it, and now it's the new site for the Marshfield Clinic. After the first of the year, new administration, I wanted to go talk to the city. I went over and I talked to Mayor Mike, and I sat in his office first week of January, and I talked about 35 acres on Burleski and Old 18. I also talked about the Cooper Motor property downtown. I was told that was in play. I thought that would be a real good site, a nice compromise in the downtown area. Close the road in the back. The cinema hasn't opened. They'd probably make that a parking lot, knock down the old Klasinski Clinic building, and could we fit it in there? A nice clean slate. Nope, that's in play. Then we talked about the 35 acres on Old 18 and Burleski, and this is early January. Executive Pavelski and I were there at the meeting in March when they bought that land. I heard the word control used many times. I heard them talk about how we can't talk about it, but it'd be a good place for a fire station, which takes somewhere between an acre and 2 acres, not 35. I heard them talk about the construction of the possibility of a new yard for their streets department. On the other part of it, it was 84 acres total. I think it was 2.1 million. I don't think any of these residents that were here now that came down to tell us that we should be good stewards of the tax dollars are aware of the fact that, same thing Mr. Keller said, that the city of Stevens Point owns over 700 acres, and I've never been corrected by them, so I have to think that the number may even be higher than that. Every one of the taxpayers in Portage County has to make up that difference, because when they purchase property, it comes off of the tax rolls. That means that you, I, and every other resident incurs more taxes for our county tax, for our school tax, as well for the Mid-State Technical College tax. And then any of the small municipalities that talked about the little bit of money that they get, it comes off of their tax rolls as well. Sitting on that land and them telling us that we should be good stewards, and it was kind of ironic because I think the statement was made by the president of the city of Stevens Point, is be good stewards of the taxpayers, and I was like, boy, that's difficult. But it just seems to be the coincidences that follow those discussions about location, and until I have money and I'm ready to move forward with anything and I have something locked up and behind me, so.
With all due respect, Chair Haga, it sounds like you and the mayor could use some counseling.
Maybe we
with
need
all
to
due
go hug it
respect,
out.
but I appreciate what you're saying, but but really, can we not
If
get
Mike's here
people
all
to
afterwards,
sit?
I'll give him a big hug. I get along very, very well with Mr. Karnowski and Mike, but I just have a very tough time because of the hat that I have to wear and the position that I have to be in. I have to make sure that I am conscious of that too, to make sure. So I just wanted to be clear, and I heard it over and over and over, and we've had staff and we've had all the rest of them in there with his staff and our staff, and so we have had meetings, but I feel that and maybe I'm biased, but they're a little more one-sided, because of the fact that we would want to talk about the green space and we were told the city would prefer the downtown. And this is something that we all wanted to talk about for options, so. Supervisor Moresi.
I'll just take my 3 minutes now. Saying anybody's one side is like calling the kettle black.
I don't think you can say that.
Nobody's budging, right? Nobody's willing to negotiate and talk right now. And it's silly. It is absolutely silly. So let's sit down and
Who's not talking?
I don't know. You and the mayor and city developers, you're strong arming them.
I sat in the meeting with them and staff. I don't know who else was all in there. I can't even remember. They had their streets people, their water engineer. So I think I had 4, 5, 6 people from our staff was in there as well. Mr. Karnowski and Mr. Wiesa. That was a meeting.
And are you finding agreement?
Finding agreement?
Are you finding agreement anywhere?
No, we were not finding agreement. But that, you said to talk, and we talked, and we didn't find agreement. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to second the motion from Supervisor Honnold for counseling then, because clearly we need a moderator or arbitrator.
It's tied up in the 180 million. Next, Supervisor Peterson.
We're talking about, 180 million, but, in the tax load. The full project costs are between Greenfield is 290 million and the total downtown is 395 million. That's a difference of $105 million in total project costs. So you're talking a big tax load to the taxpayers of Portage County of about $5.25 million per year at 5% interest. So when you're talking, waiting this out or between the two projects, you're talking about a $5.25 million tax load difference just in interest. You take that, they were talking of the people that are shopping downtown, it's going to take 86 workers out. And if, according to that survey, they said that you take these 86 workers and you take 5 days a week, that's 430 people shopping times a week, even at the top of the $150 that if they did spend that, that's the top, which only 2% did, that would equal $64,000 a week spent downtown, which I don't think that they do. That would equal out to $3.354 million a year. That would still leave almost $2.2 million for public transportation to put the people out. So the cost of this thing being in a greenfield is just cheaper all the way around, which new construction always is cheaper than fitting something in. If you look at this thing, say 30 or 40 years down the road, this thing should be built so that we can modify it. Here, downtown, I don't see how they can do it. There isn't enough parking places in any of the project sheets that I have seen. There is no parking left. Never has been. That's all I have to say.
Supervisor Machikowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For Mayor Ruiz, I have $100 here for you. But I'm gonna make you go through the RFP process, and I'm gonna look at similar companies or similar people to you. Maybe the chairman of Stockton, Mike Bronk, Don Spearings, and Mike Juris can all put in and apply to get my $100, just like Tegra and Dewberry did. I've heard that every month it costs us 800,000 roughly construction costs. 10 months, that's $8 million, was said earlier. That $8 million could put municipal water in Nelsonville. Could put municipal water in Nelsonville, Rochelle, Elman, Pine Grove, Bancroft. Think about that. I was at T-ball practice the other night. Got volunteered to be a coach somehow.
I was gonna ask you how you did.
Yeah. I struck out. I didn't know I was that good a pitcher. And one of the children was batting, and another child wanted to bat. And I heard their mom say to him, "It's not about you right now." Well, tonight's about you, supervisors. It's not about a political party. It's not about a business association. It's not about the mayor, the county executive, the board chair. It's about you. If you vote no to fund the Justice Center tonight, you can be the one to tell the judges that they have to hold trials in an unsafe courtroom. You can tell the correction officers that they have to work in a jail that's been obsolete for 30 years. They've been dealing with it for 30 years. You can tell the DA that they have to walk the same hall as the individual that they just sentenced to a prison term. You can explain to the victims that their assailant will be walking past them as they wait for the courtroom to open. It's up to you to make the Portage County Jail and courthouse safe and secure. That's what this is all about, safety and security. It's not about where we build it, it's about safety and security.
Supervisor Pataki, you had your hand up.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I have heard some people, including some people who spoke tonight, think that the majority of the citizens using the courthouse and jail live in Stevens Point, but I don't hear them stating any facts to prove this. Well, here are some facts and numbers that are true and can be fact-checked by looking at the Portage County Official Directory 22 and 23. The Portage County population is 71,628. Stevens Point population, according to that book, is 25,580. So the people living outside of Stevens Point population is 46,048. Seems to me that's like 64.5% more than in Stevens Point. It would seem reasonable to me that 46,048 people would have more dealings at the courthouse than in 25,580. It's about time we start thinking about the people living outside of Stevens Point who have to travel through Stevens Point to get to the courthouse or the jail, and give them a little care. All right? Thank you.
Anybody else, or we had enough? I want to make sure, the part I can't get back, make sure Matt gives Barry that $100 bill back too, so. Check your pocket.
No one tell my wife I brought that out, please.
Printed them up at the same time.
Oh, Supervisor Splinter.
I asked two requests, because this is a big time vote, and we need as much input as we can. We do have a county exec who has a healthy budget every year, and I would like to hear his thoughts at this point, and I'd also like to hear the thoughts of the sheriff as far as, I remember a year or two ago, we brought this up, well, we're gonna try to get you a new new courthouse and a new jail. And he said, yeah, you're gonna go right to the end and you're all gonna choke like you always do. So I'd like to hear from the sheriff first, and then the county exec, and those are two important inputs that I would like.
I don't know how you can't come up and talk with the intro like that.
You pretty much summed it up.
Yeah, so. You can come up in front, Els.
Come up front.
Come up front, Mike. We want to see you.
Big time.
My legs are falling asleep.
Well, it's good for you to get up and walk around then.
You didn't have so much cash in your wallet. You were like,
Yeah, I don't have that $100. I'm disappointed. I came here tonight with the expectations of talking about the money, but I'm disappointed in we're losing fact of why we're even here. The safety and security of the citizens, of our staff. Once you guys voted 15-10, we had a democratic process. I said I would jump on board and I would strongly support wherever you voted for to go. And I'm strongly in support of that. I just feel that something's amiss here in regards to the county board making a decision, understanding the needs of the county. I see it every day. I know, supervisor stated, it's like a kid stomping his feet. Well, I'm going to tell you, I see the writing on the wall if this does not happen tonight. I understand truly that that resolution for coming back downtown will not make it to the county board floor. So this will die, and I feel that. So that's my personal opinion. And you can disagree with that, but that's my personal opinion in regards to this whole process. I've spent, since 2015, probably 500 meetings in regards to this. And you guys, Tegra, BWDR, and Findorf, I feel bad for these guys for getting railed tonight because they have busted their tails in regards to getting the information. We started this process as the wants. And I'm telling you, we had some jacuzzis in offices, guys. But we went to the needs. They scaled it back down. They stated back when I first came in office, we needed a 400-bed jail. Now we're down to a 200-bed facility that we can actually classify, bring these programs back, have space for programming and things like that. This is not a Taj Mahal building at all. And when you talk about the square footage, that includes all the soft costs. So, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned in regards to when I talk to supervisors, not understanding, hearing things from people that think they're experts out in the community when I listen to the experts. And I do. I'm the first one to admit I am not an expert. I'm not an expert on the road. Sorry, Scott, I'm not an expert on the road thing.
No, but you are the expert in your job.
And
that was my point. You are the expert in your job.
Safety.
If you weren't, I wouldn't have voted for you.
And I did. I ran back in 2015 to remodel the facility we had. That came back to $30-some million, which reduced our jail beds, did not give us the programming, did not get us where we needed to be. So at that point is when I changed my tune and I said, we cannot waste money, our taxpayers' money. So that's where we're at today. And I feel we're at our best chance. I'm hoping for the best, but it is up to you. And if you have a question for me, feel free.
I've got a question for you. The comment has been made about the scales being tilted towards one site versus the other when I believe the only ones that were in there that were elected, that when we had those group meetings, you were in on those, Mr. Reed, Mr. Schultz, Jennifer Josie, Todd. Is there anybody I'm missing?
No.
What's that?
Myself.
And Don, the three of us, but and feel free, but do you feel that any one of us were influencing that group? We were letting the information go where it needed to go, and I'm sorry if it didn't come out the way you wanted it, but there was no influencing of anybody in there, and I would ask if that is a correct statement.
I think we had about 8 meetings in regards to location. And I told Ms. Malevsky's here, she is correct. I said from the get-go, I will make whatever site work, not a problem. But when we started the process in regards to selection of the best site for the Justice Center, the Space and Properties made their decision in regards to, from the cost to the accessibility to the amount of people that use the courthouse. You heard from the district attorney, 64.5% are from outside of Stevens Point that come to the courts. Well, I mean, you have to look at both ways in regards to what's most accessible for people. And they weighed that. I'll tell you right now, the department heads didn't. We said the pros and the cons, but they weighed it, we put it down, they made a decision. I support their decision.
Anybody else from staff that was in there disagree with the assessment that I had, that they felt that they were pressured to go one way or another? Like to make a comment or say anything? No?
Jenny's smiling. She's going, don't put me on the spot.
So, all right.
Really quickly, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make one quick comment.
Supervisor Keller.
I'm sorry, but the information was given to us. I read through it, and I came to a decision. Nobody came to me and said, I think you should look at it this way. Nobody said, I think you should vote this way. I just want to make that clear. There had not been little circles of people over here supporting a greenfield site, finding ways to make sure that it goes a certain way. Thank you.
Supervisor Dodge.
I went back, I've been part of this discussion for 20 years, probably more. This is not a new idea. County Board adopted a resolution on June 18th of 2019, authorizing BWBR Dewberry to commence with the design development on 25 acres of green space. Did you get the date? June 18th of 2019. That's 4 or 5 years ago. At that time, my understanding was there was meetings with the mayor and other folks from the city, and they were very much in favor of the green space. And then it went to city council. And I'm sure there was the same kind of pressure we got tonight from probably the same people to stay downtown because it was in their interest. Just saying, that's kind of the history. And I guess, Vinny, you talked about going back to Venture. I did a little research about the Wood County Jail. They hired Venture. And in 2021, they did an estimate for their jail at $58 million. By 2022, with inflation, it had gone up to $98 million. And when they let the bid in 2022, it came in at $103 million. Now, I have figures from the jail study and ad hoc, which was an update. Construction costs $48,850,000. Project costs $56,220,000. And non-construction costs at 20%, which I'm assuming is contingency, puts the total cost at $112 million for the jail only. That's all they're constructing in Wood County. Now, I'm imagining that these figures are accurate. The point is, with inflation, they were building a jail next to their courthouse, as I understand it. I've seen a videotape on Facebook about it. Going back to Venture has been discussed time and time again. Venture's figures are so far out of line today, it's laughable. I'm sorry. That's all I've got to say.
Anything else for me?
Any more questions? That's all right. We just like making you stand up there, Mike. Anybody else have any questions for the sheriff? Any of those?
Your legs.
Yeah. No? All right.
Stan
Thanks.
wants to talk.
Oh, Stan?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Can I speak?
Yes, Stan?
All right. And I'm sure Sheriff Lucas can probably back me up on this. Even when I was the sheriff, the U.S. Marshal's office came in and did a study of the courthouse and stated that it was very unsafe, which it is to this day. The jail, help me out here, Mike. the people who come and check out the jail?
Department of Corrections.
Yeah, correct. When I was sheriff, said that there were inequities at the jail, but they said as long as we were thinking about building a new jail, they would not shut us down. So I'm telling you right now that if, and I don't know when the last inspection was, but if they come in there and there's inequities, they can shut us down, which means that we would have to transport all our prisoners to some other jail. Consider the cost of that.
That is, I mean, that is correct in the sense that the Department of Correction comes in and does a study of our facility, which is actually this Wednesday and Thursday. So they'll be giving me a report after that. You know, the other concern that Supervisor Pataki brought up is a concern because we have addressed a lot of deficiencies in our jail and also in the courts. People know now. They know we have deficiencies. They know that we have problems. And when people know about that and something happens, you're going to know about it. So that's why I hated to bring these up in regards to the deficiencies. And I thank everybody in the county board that came through and is making an informed decision by doing the tour of the facility, understanding the deficiencies that go on. But now that the deficiencies are out there and the public know in regards to the space needs and reasons why, it's out to the public.
So let me ask you the other question that's been brought up too as well is, this should be a referendum question. How do we educate 70,000 people and get them to tour the jail or the courthouse here to make sure they understand this complicated issue?
You know.
Yeah, there you go.
I will agree. The last time we had an open house with models and everything for the last time in I think 16 or 17, 2 people showed up. One of them spoke tonight, Mr. Maher, but there was nobody else from the public that came up, and it was advertised on 7/9, the papers, and nobody came to view that. So it is concerning because a lot of people, until it comes down to the money, are not going to be concerned at all. They're not looking at the concept. They're not looking at safety, security. It comes down to coming out of what's coming out of their pocket. So I don't know how we can address that.
And as I said, there are certain things that are, this is a complicated issue and it's all things that are on so again, as the sheriff had mentioned, bringing all the people through and trying to expose those things and talk about those is not a good idea for the security and for those reasons. That's why you people were elected and your people were elected to represent your districts. So, oh boy, here we go. Supervisor Dodge, then Supervisor Matchakowski.
I just found an article from Plover Point Metro Wire from April 25th of 2019. The headline is, "The county seeks rural input from potential property swap with the city." And that was all part of that discussion with the city about green space and swapping land and buildings down here for the city use. Executive Holman was with us at that time, and part of this article shows that there were meetings scheduled April 26th in Pine Grove, April 30th in Junction City, May 1st in Rosholt, May 7th in the Plover Village Hall, and May 9th at Letty Jensen Center in Amherst. I went to the one at Letty Jensen Center and not one person showed up. So there was public information and no one came. That's in addition to the workshops that were offered in these buildings for the public to attend.
And yet, it's the transparency, but I also remember that at the time Supervisor Neville, I think, attended all of those. Is that right, Mildred? I think you attended all those meetings. Yeah, I'd seen her at quite a few of them, and she went around to every one of them, so.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I attended all of them as well, and we had no more than 3 people show up of interest at any one of those meetings.
Right.
Myself, Supervisor, or Executive Holman. Had a lot of nice chats, 5 evenings.
Good visits.
So, Again, I don't know how we get the word out and get people engaged, and we've said it over and over and over again. And I don't know what the answer is, and I welcome that, but I think that's all we got for you, Sheriff.
My question's actually for the
Supervisor Batchikowski.
One more, big team out with it.
You had called on me before. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Sheriff. You said that now that we've exposed our deficiencies, that we'd know about it. We know about the deficiencies. Do you mean that we'd be held liable if something were to happen then, or we open ourselves up to liability? I'm kind of confused on that.
He's not
Operation Council's right here.
But I said, you said we'd know about it, and we know about them, but I'm kind of confused, I guess, on that statement.
You might have to stay confused. I don't know.
Well, I will say that it concerns me that, that there could be some kind of, suit or something like that because people know about it, but that's up to the Corporation Council in regards to termination. But that's, we have to give you guys the deficiencies and let people know when we're doing this so that you have an informed decision in regards to the scope of this concept that we're doing. So
I guess from my perspective, I don't, to try and provide some type of legal opinion generally about potential liability. I took your comment, Sheriff, and I think we're cognizant of the fact of, operational security, to use more of a military term, but that applies here too. You're not inclined to obviously provide too much information about either deficiency of your operation or the deficiencies or potential deficiencies or challenges in the courthouse that would give, somebody that had, a motive and opportunity to try and do harm, to give them too much information. So that's the way I take that. I'm not here, and I don't think it's appropriate to try and speculate on a legal opinion about, potential liability on conceptual terms.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, Executive Pavelski, did you?
Good job.
Hey, good evening. I'll try to be as short as possible, but there's a couple points that I would like to bring up as far as this whole consideration between the county and the city working together. One thing I think the county supervisors need to understand is the city holds the cards in control because the laws are in their favor. For example, one of the questions I've been asking and trying to work with them is that if the county supervisors chose to build in a green site, is there any property that you would be willing to sell us or allow us to annex for that purpose? And in communication, it's kind of like playing a tennis game. If you hit the ball over there, then you got to respond and the ball has to come back. I never got a response. And see, because they hold the key into annexation and they also hold a major key in selling the land. And so there was no communication back forth to us, so that we are looking at some other possibilities, and there are other possibilities, but that's where communication broke down. So that was a real tough pill to swallow, because now, and I understand that because the city, again, they believe it's in their favor, and it probably is, for the county, for the courthouse and the jail to be built downtown. Now the jail, there are studies that show jails do not make economic development in a downtown or wherever they're built. Jails and courthouses should not be built near schools, near churches, or in floodplains. Our current jail and courthouse is near a school, near churches, and in a floodplain. So that's some of the reasons why I believe some of the advantages in a green site is better. And so I can see why the city council or the mayor wants it built downtown, but you as county supervisors, you are not city supervisors, you are county supervisors. They say that, some people have said that there was no community approval. Apparently there was community approval last month when 15 supervisors voted to put it in a green site. So we've got community approval. Now we got a situation where we need 18 votes to move this thing forward. I take a look at it. I really appreciate what Supervisor Morrow said last last county board meeting, and, you know, I don't get what I want. I've had eminent domain come through my property and take something that I did not want to give them, but it was for the better of the road system and for the better of the county to have Highway 10 going through my property. And that, you know, again, I didn't get what I want. Sometimes I go to visit my daughter with 6 grandkids. My daughter asked me, well, you know, Dad, do you want, you know, steak or pork chops tonight? And all of a sudden the kids play, well, we want peanut and butter jelly. We want peanut and butter jelly. It's like, well, and I could get my steak or my pork chops, but I said, no, let's just go ahead and have peanut butter and jelly. You know, I don't like peanut butter and jelly at my age, but the kids do, and they have either peanut butter and jelly, and they take peanut butter and jelly as a sandwich, and they smear it on their faces, and they have a great big time. I don't like eating my sandwich, but I have a great big time. Because it's just, you know, it's because it's what they wanted, but I didn't get my way. You know, in the long run, again, we've been doing this for 20 years. You know, if we do move to a green site, it's supposedly $10 million more, or we save $10 million more. And also the whole aspect of parking. The city says that we've got ample parking. I mean, Dewberry met with the city, and I think they presented that 2 county boards ago, that there really isn't ample parking for people to actually adequately get to the facilities if we build downtown, and especially if we put HHS downtown. You know, they need at least 150 to 200 parking spots more. I can have Todd speak to that, but it's getting loud. And as far as this also aspect of wanting more information, we had our first meeting on January 31st. It's been 3 months. Tegra, Dewberry, BWBR, any staff was totally willing to answer any question you possibly had. I apologize. We are looking for a media person. Could we have had it on a better county website? Yes, but actually, you know, you supervisors are the ones that are making the decision. I thought we had given you as much information as possible, gave you access to as much information as possible, and that's why we've had comments that when we open it up to the public really doesn't respond that much, and it is a super complicated issue, and that's why you guys are entrusted with that decision. I believe God is putting you in these positions to make that decision at this time. What else is that I talk about this whole thing as far as operational analysis? Sheriff Lucas have talked about operational analysis. We save operational costs by being in a green site. And as far as the efficiencies from that standpoint, there is going to, you know, and again, if there is going to be some concerns from a city standpoint of moving people to the new location as far as for offenders, but also if we do go to a green site, I'm willing to work with the city. For example, if we save $10 million, okay, do we need to put a certain amount of money or help the city in that economic development? I mean, there are bus routes, there's certain things. Supervisor Peterson explained that by the savings of money, we can put infrastructure in place to overcome some of these obstacles. I mean, I haven't worked with Findorf, but I've worked with other construction contractors. I've worked with other, government agencies. I've worked with people in this community. And if there's any problem that we have, I'm totally confident we can solve it if we put our mind there. And from the future, you know, from expansion, location, whenever you build something, again, am I biased or have I made a educated decision? I think 15 supervisors made an educated decision last month. So now do you want to kick this can down the road? Or do you want to actually, get something done and get the courts a safe and secure place? Do you want to rehabilitate the offenders as best as all possible? And you get to kind of just wade through the rhetoric, and you're all intelligent individuals. That's why if there's any other questions I can answer, I'll be happy to answer them, and we can go from there. Joan, you've got one.
I'd like to ask the executive, and I'd like to ask Chair Haga. I have been contacted in the last couple of days. I think people know my sentiment about where I would like to see the Civic Center, but I've been told that if we don't get the funding tonight, the whole process is dead. There's no possibility of moving forward in any way. I think some of the other supervisors have been told the same thing. I would like the two of you tonight to say that to me, that if this is not funded, that we have no possibility of a new jail or a new courthouse.
There's always a possibility, but that's, what, 2 years down the road with a new county board? And I mean, okay, there's a possibility, but are you going to have, right now we need 3 out of 10 supervisors to fund a green space. Are you think you're going to actually get 9 supervisors out of 15 to fund a downtown space? That's the bottom line. I mean, you guys can kick it down the road. That's your choice. And I've tried to outline the details of what that means. I disagree with that. But again, I that's why, I'm not going to take anybody's freedom away, and I'm not going to allow anybody to take my freedom away. And if anybody tries to take your freedom away, I'm going to fight on your behalf. Your freedom to choose whatever you want to choose here tonight. Hopefully I've portrayed the facts, the figures, and the choice is up to you.
So I think Mrs. Jennings will probably verify my expertise in this area. I keep getting accolades from her, and just to be clear, these people that are on the committee is approved by the board. I don't set the committees, and I don't appoint chairs, so just as a point of clarification. But I guess Supervisor Hanel, what I'm looking at is that we have a resolution that came out of Space and Properties 4-1 to build on the green space, and then that came forward to the board and it passed 15-10.
Right.
So now to say that if this money gets turned down tonight and gets voted down, that somehow, and there is a resolution that was hanging there in Space and Properties to build on the downtown site because we brought 2 of them forward. The reason there was 2 that were brought forward is because if the green space that came out of Space and Properties went onto the board and it got voted down, then we would go back to Space and Properties and bring up the other one and then vote on that one, so we had a direction. We have a direction because the greenfield space passed. So now the downtown site resolution that was postponed for 120 days
Yes.
is no longer needed, so that committee can dispense of it.
It's as likely that some of those people who voted, that 15, if this is not funded tonight, would change their mind and say, let's get going on a jail.
I guess
Let's
Joan,
get going on a jail.
just look around the room, Joan. I see a lot of heads shaking. I don't think
That's fine.
And when I say that I don't think it's possible, it's because I'm always trying to look at how to navigate through all of the rules and everything, and how these committees, how this all works and how it's going to play out. But that committee voted 4-1 30 days ago, and they figured that the green space was the best choice. I don't believe that those people will vote for the downtown, and that has to come out of that committee to get to the board.
Okay.
So I'm not telling you it can't. I'm just telling you the likelihood of it is very, very low, in my opinion. Okay?
But it's not a dead issue, correct?
Okay. It's not
It's unlikely, but it's not a dead issue. Okay, thank you.
And then again, when there's a new board seated in April of 24, just like when the mayor told us before that we have a resolution from 2015 for a downtown. Anytime we have a new board, the board has a decision, we have a makeup change. But when we do that, then we're gonna sit here and people are gonna want more time and more information, and then they're gonna vote no on the money, and then we won't build it either, so. And these are all just my speculations, but I think that, I don't know if anybody disagrees with me, some of the more seasoned people that are here versus some of the freshmen, because I think the freshmen are the ones that are trying to understand it versus maybe some that are here a little more versed in it. Am I correct or not? Supervisor Soik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you are correct. I know when I first got here, my very first year, Supervisor Johnson had spoke on a campus-type facility, and as I stated before, I was not in favor of any jail, justice center, when I first got here. And as I sat down and was able to educate myself, this is kind of hard for me to say, but what Supervisor Johnson at the time had said about a campus-style system started to make sense. And I agree with her. I agree with her now. 3 years ago, I didn't understand. I didn't agree with her, and you weren't going to get this vote out of me 3 years ago. And when I say I'm taking one vote on it tonight, that is because that is what the people that I represent want me to do. They don't want to spend more of their tax dollars than they have to. None of us do. You've heard me say in the past that my parents may not be able to stay in their home as the taxes on their fixed income keeps going up and up and up. And I don't think I'm the only one that has parents or grandparents that are facing that very real issue when it comes to taxes going up on their fixed income. But my parents, who I represent, have even stated, if it's needed, vote for it and put it in the place where it's best suited for our needs of the county. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I will continue to do. And like I said, when Melissa Johnson said a campus, a large enough space to bring our people in and to bring our programs to help rehabilitate and have a sense of ownership in our community, I thought she was absolutely crazy at the time, and I have changed my mind due to the education sitting here the last 3 years. Thank you.
She's in the other room listening, I'm so.
Thank you for the education, Supervisor Johnson.
She's waving to you. Supervisor Gifford.
Yeah, hi. When I first spoke against this Greenfield site, I did that on the basis that I consider urban sprawl to be an unsustainable mode of economic and community development, and no one has convinced me that that was incorrect. Sustainability, I said to Jeremy Solon after that one meeting, it's not a buzzword, it's not just a liberal phrase that you toss around to sound cool. When we did the study on the path to sustainable Stevens Point, there were over 100 people involved in that from many different areas. Granted, a lot of them came from UWSP. And I spoke with Dave Barbier of the Office of Sustainability last week, and I mentioned that I was taking this position still that an urban sprawl campus, or you call it Greenfield, is not going to be sustainable, and there's a number of reasons for that. Not just the social justice aspect that Mr. Medine has laid out very well, because as you all know, the United Way just dropped their big data report, and the number of economically stressed households in Stevens Point has gone up again. So the campus would be located in an area of very many households who are under economic stress, who tend to interact with the criminal justice system perhaps more so than folks in more high-income areas. And I know we've heard a lot of, I would call representation from the suburban areas, the 45,000 folks, as to why, the urban area shouldn't have a decision on this. But here's the thing. Going forward, trying to maintain the two downtowns, one way out in the County Road R and the other one here, is going to lead to a lot of further economic stress, because we're entering into an era when the natural resource constraints are going to really become serious, okay? The other problem is that the economy is not in such hot shape. I know I keep hearing about the raging inflation and all of that. Well, keep in mind there was raging inflation going into the global financial crisis that began in December 2007. And all of a sudden, commodity prices crashed, jobs crashed, wages crashed, homeowners were being foreclosed on. So a situation of hot, rapid economic growth can quickly turn into one of global recession, okay? So I don't think the economy is in very good shape. The banking sector is really stressed out and only going to get worse. So trying to build as if we were in the 1980s and 1990s when economic growth was, running strong is, I think, going forward, and I study this stuff all the time, right? Sustainability is a study. It's a method of systems thinking about the whole economy and society that you live in. And I think if this vote goes through and the Greenfield site is chosen, that the people of Portage County will deeply regret this for decades to come. So I guess that's my only comment here tonight.
Supervisor Laddick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before we had the vote on if it was going to be downtown or Greenfield location, I told everybody I talked to that whenever that decision is made, I will support the funding, whichever choice the county board made at that time. Some people were surprised at that because they thought that this might come up where people might have what we call protest vote, and because they didn't get their way, which I think is morally wrong. We all know this is needed. Safety and security of the people who use our court system, our jail, our jailers, our sheriffs, our deputies, the judges, the DAs, the people that are in the court system, defendants. We can't delay this anymore, because to keep kicking on the can here for 20 plus years is just ridiculous. So I made that decision a long time ago, and I would ask my colleagues to do the same thing. Support the decision that has been made back on April 18th. Thank you.
So I can remember too that, and Dave brings up a point, the judges were brought up, and I remember in the judge's letter that when I read it, it said they had a preference to the downtown, but it went on and on and on and talked about the importance of needing it and to quit. And I think Judge Malepsky brought a big stack of papers in and gave us a big talk about kicking it down the road. And I think those are his words. I'm repeatedly talking about we need to get this done. We need to have something happen. And I believe that's what that said in that letter in the last probably 3 paragraphs or more, that now is the time. They believe that it needed to happen. And I believe that the DA had said the same thing. They had a preference, and that's fine. Everybody can have a preference. We can disagree, but we have a democracy. We have elections. We have votes. They pass, they fail, people win elections, people concede. We have Super Bowls and somebody wins. They don't say, that's not who was supposed to win, let's do it over, let's do it again. This needs to get done. This needs to not be kicked can down the road. Supervisor Shabilsky.
I don't feel the need to pontificate too much, but I will ask a question that's maybe most appropriate for council. Now, we talked a little bit about how that came out of committee 4-1, passed here 15-10. Could you maybe explain the legal reasoning or the legislative thought behind this vote here tonight being a 3/4 supermajority?
It might be the clerk.
I can. There's two specific statutes at play here, and one of them has to do with issuing bonds. That's in Wisconsin statute section 67.05 sub 1 sub F, talking about a county board needing three. I don't see. Unless it the county board needs to adopt a resolution by a vote of at least 3/4 of the members elect to issue the bonds. And then it makes reference to 59.001 sub 2M that defines what the members elect are. And that talks about at any given time, it's the duly elected supervisors during the regular term, but what it excludes is those supervisors who are no longer serving by death, resignation, or removal from office. So in this case, since Supervisor Weaver has resigned, we have 24 supervisors. So it's the interplay of those two statutes that talks about bonding by resolution and it requiring a 3/4 vote, and it's the members elect at any given time, and the members elect are at 24.
Right. And I think I understood that. The relationship I was hoping you could explain a little bit better is between a referendum or not going to a referendum and doing it as a board. Why would a referendum need 50.1 and the board vote have to be a 3/4 supermajority?
I cannot, unless somebody else wants to take that, I'm not gonna.
I don't know if
Okay.
I'm not prepared to speak to that for purposes of tonight's funding resolution.
Okay.
Jennifer. John, executive. You're done. They made you stand up there long enough to.
I guess I'm not clear on, I mean, in terms of a referendum, the county can have advisory referendums. In terms of a requirement to go to referendum to issue debt, it's not a requirement. I know that was mentioned by someone from the public this evening, but I don't have any information or bond council research to support kind of answering your question. We've issued debt by resolution. There's a variety of different types of resolutions. The one before you tonight is both a intent and a reimbursement resolution. It's the intent part of the resolution that requires the 3/4 vote.
Right. And I guess the loaded part of my question is asking why so many, why do we need such a large majority? And what I'm driving at here is, in absence of a binding referendum, that it needs to be practically unanimous, and the reasoning behind that. And I guess I was just wanting to point out, because I've heard a lot of talk about, yes, it passed 4-1 out of committee. Yes, it passed here 15-10, so we should just go ahead with it. But there's a reason that the board has to vote 3/4.
Well, and I think some of the reason is, when you're issuing debt, it can be for large periods of time. You want to make sure that everybody is on board, specifically this project. I've heard it mentioned a lot of times tonight. Sorry about my voice. I've heard it mentioned a lot of times tonight. $180 million is a lot of money. You bet it is. So we better know that, this is what we want to do and we want to move forward and we're all in agreement. And, I won't say any more about it. It's a big decision. So I think the premise is you want to make sure that the body's on board.
Yep, and thanks, that's kind of what.
Hang on, Jen. Hey, Can you tell me what our roughly what our debt ceiling is, what our maximum, is it around 390 million?
Yeah, don't quote me because I don't know the number. I don't memorize it. But it's somewhere around 390. You know, and everything that we've been kind of basing our figures on is, you know, looking at not having outstanding debt beyond 40% of our debt limit outstanding at any point in time. You know, and looking at not only the issue that you're talking about right now, but also all the, you know, the two that you just voted on and things that we already have kind of in queue, what we know is coming down later, when those are going to happen, and kind of planning for all that. The other thing that I'd mention, you know, about the 180 million, just to make sure that there's some clarity around this, because I've heard it mentioned tonight as well. The intent resolution to issue bonds or notes, general obligation bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $180 million can be multiple issues. It's not just like you're going to vote today and then tomorrow we go issue one bond for $180 million. It's multiple. It's when the cash is needed for the project. It would be a cash flow with the professionals to say, you know, when are things going to happen during the project. Every issue would come back to this board. They'd be competitive sales. We determine notes, bonds, whatever, based on what our need was. That all has to be determined at some point in time. This is just, you know, the intent of the not to exceed amount, and then, you know, those issuances come much later when the project is further along down the road.
Did you say so? I kind of hand up. Stan.
Jennifer, I thought I heard the county executive say that the downtown site is just going to cost $10,000 more than a green space site. That's not true, right?
10 million.
10 million, he said.
I thought I heard
Estimated.
him say 10,000.
No.
We wish. Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Just one.
Supervisor Keller.
Hey, I'm not the first one to speak 3 times. Every time I was asked, if this vote last week goes to putting this thing downtown, will you vote for the funding? And every time I said yes, because we need it done. Thank you.
All right. There is no, John, you want to say something else?
Just a couple of comments. Supervisor Gifford, you had mentioned a thing about as far as urban sprawl. One of the things as far as the urban sprawl with this building project is that, I mean, this is a 70 to 80 year project. This is not a venture capitalist thing where it gets some, you know, cheap money or a government grant or something that goes on. They come in there, they build 30, 40 million, $100 million building, and it doesn't work out for them. This is not a Solyndra that happens in 2 years and it just sits there empty and they just used a bunch of land, and it's, you know, this is going to be there for 70 or 80 years. I mean, this is the future of where, you know, where you're setting some roots down. So that kind of takes care of a little bit of the urban sprawl consideration. And then also this big $180 million price tag. You know, we have not purchased one nail, one screw, one 2x4. Basically, these purchases are, if we get the funding tonight, you know, we're still not going to be purchasing anything. We got to secure land, and then after that, you know, then once that gets done, then we can start actually looking at some specifics. So you're looking at pricing things into the future. So you got, you know, inflation costs, you know, so you know, we don't want this to be another healthcare facility where we appropriate 20 million and we find out it's going to be 25 and we can't do it. So I mean, we've dealt with some reputable architects, construction people that have those costs, you know, projected, so we don't run into that problem. And, you know, should it cost 180 million? Again, there's 20% contingencies in there. You know, you've got a financial department that has this county is probably one of the most fiscally responsible counties in the state. You got to fight me to get $1 out of my pocket. I'm not going to spend any more than I have to. I've been in construction. If they start spending, 50 cents more per cubic yard for concrete, I'm going to be all over these guys. I get along with Joe pretty well, but I mean, we're going to have some meetings, once groundbreaking goes on. I enjoy that. And I can just, again, I want to work with the city because I know it creates some concerns, but also I want to work for you that if you want to build it, I'm going to do it the best possible way. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. I'm going to get going before we get on to that 4 hours and cost this project even more money, so.
Lunch.
No further discussion. Supervisor Howell.
Chair, could you clarify what a 3/4 vote is?
18.
Out of how many?
24. Okay. All right, you ready?
Yep.
There we go. All those in favor vote yes and opposed vote no.
Supervisor Pataki?
Aye.
Supervisor Olson?
No.
Dave? Supervisor Medine? There, got it.
Is this stuck? Hold on.
Who takes care of these? I can't blame the supervisors now, can we? Not this time.
Technical difficulties, sorry.
The suspense.
Motion fails, 14-10.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Barry Jakowski, seconded by Dubek. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.